Go. Good evening. I'm going to bring this meeting of the Dixon Unified School District Board of Trustees to order. Do we have any comments on closed session?
I see one.
Okay, go ahead.
Good evening, Luke and
Hi, Mike.
board. Is it? I mean, I only see you in here. Is that okay, or
Yeah,
relay or?
Yeah, you want to? I can. I'm not sure technically. If you want to tell me, I can relay the message to them, or I can.
I'm okay. I'm okay with you relaying. I
Okay.
trust you. I just have a short statement.
Okay, go ahead.
Good evening, board. I hope that you will decide to give me the opportunity to present my appeal to you at the next board meeting. I have provided you with the United States Postal Service delivery notification for the date that I was served, and I have asked Cindy to provide you with the form that I signed when I picked up the packet at the district office on August 11th. Regardless, neither of these two items really matter, as I did submit my request for appeal on August 15th at approximately 4:30 p.m. I have provided Mr. Foster with the best evidence I have of this. In hindsight, I should have taken a picture to document my trip to the district office on that Saturday, but I never would have imagined that the district would go to such extremes as to blatantly lie to you that they did not receive it on time. It's frankly disgusting. I hope that they will be providing to you the person that states that they checked the drop box on Saturday so that you can question them. If this person tells you it wasn't in the box, they are liars also. I appreciate your consideration on this item. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mike. And with that, we will adjourn to closed session. The board took action by unanimous vote of all members present to rescind its prior dismissal of a classified employee pending the conclusion of a hearing on the matter. The classified employee will remain on unpaid suspension in the interim. Okay, let's start the business meeting. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call. Lloyd?
Present.
Jewel?
She's on mute.
You're on mute, Jewel.
Present.
Thank you. Melissa?
I'm here.
Catlin?
Here.
And I am here as well. Okay, so for those of you who have not already heard all the rules, I will not read the initial notice to the public about providing a written request because we're not doing that. When it's the appropriate time for public comment, please use your electronic hand raise to notify us that you'd like to speak. We will try to limit questions to 5 minutes. I'm sorry, answers or comments to 5 minutes. We also are going to try something new tonight for purposes of less distraction, and that is, until you're speaking, let's please keep video off. We would, of course, love to see your guys' faces if you want to do that when you speak, but that is up to you, certainly. In accordance with Board Bylaw 9324B, the district may tape, film, stream, or broadcast any open board meeting. The recording or broadcast may capture images or sounds of those attending the meeting. Any district recording may be erased or destroyed 30 days after the meeting. Recordings made at the direction of the board during the meeting are public records and upon request shall be made available for inspection by members of the public on district equipment without charge. Do we have any recognition of guests and presentations?
Not this evening, no.
Correspondence?
None tonight.
Okay. On the consent agenda, I am going to make a motion to remove items E and K from the consent agenda to be heard under matter 8. And just for the public's knowledge, that is because my wife is involved in those two things. And although I don't think there's any true conflict, I just want to make sure that there's no appearance of impropriety. So I'll make a motion to remove those two items. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Lloyd?
Aye.
Jewel?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Catlin?
Aye.
And I'm aye as well. Thank you. Do we have any board questions or comments on the consent agenda?
Actually, Luke, if I may, Mark, can you let me share my screen, please? The sheer number of contract items on the consent agenda tonight just deserves a little bit of explanation or clarification, I think. So I put together just a really brief descriptor. A through D are routine things, so I don't have those on my little page here, and I'll hold off on E. What did you say? E and K. We'll talk about those separately. And some of these are routine annual contract renewals, and some of them are new, and some of them are new in particular in response to distance learning. So I will do these quickly. So F is a PBIS rewards service. So C.A. Jacobs uses an app to track their rewards, and that contract is in the amount of $2,059. G is actually not a contract per se. It's an interagency agreement between the district and Dixon Montessori. We provide lunches over there. So the agreement allows for reimbursement to the district for the meals served. And we don't know how much reimbursement that'll be, depends on how many meals are served. Ed Puzzle is one of our add-ons for professional development and support. So this one in particular is geared towards interactive student-centered video lessons by our staff. Annual contract of $6,700. Ed Tech is a group that did professional development for us both in our PD days and beforehand. So the PD days, we had $10,800 bill in item I. In item J, this is with Ed Tech again, and this was the voluntary training that was available for staff prior to the start of the school year. So we had 132 people participate there for a total of $8,844. We'll skip over K for the moment. L is Go Guardian software. This helps teachers manage on-task behaviors, and it's also a means for us to monitor content and intervene if students are searching for or engaging in inappropriate content, harmful content as well. That's $13,080. M, the Heartland Schools Solutions Agreement. This is an annual one. This is the software that supports our payment system, online payment system for school lunches. N is a one-time. This was our agreement with Avid for our keynote speaker and some follow-up discussion at the cost of $5,000. Paradeck is one of our new services that we're using here in distance learning, in particularly helpful with formative assessments and some interactive questioning strategies. Models, $10,500, an annual contract. Renaissance covers several things that we use on an annual basis. So this is a renewal. It includes Accelerated Reader, the STAR Early Literacy, and STAR Reading subscriptions. So we've got continuation with those folks. Screencastify is a software program used here in distance learning. It allows for recording and editing of lessons, $4,500. Ray Morgan is an annual one. This is our service for 23 copiers and 22 printers. The cost does get close to this full amount, $59,583 for the copiers, another $2,014 for the printers. Escape Assessment Agreement. We contracted with this individual, Julie Yantrarek, last year and then it was interrupted by the closure. So she is an expert in Escape, and she's analyzing our use of Escape, which is our personnel and finance management software system. So there's about half of what we allocated last year left. We just extended the term. So that's up to $4,632.50. We're replacing the camera system at Dixon High School in item T. All new cameras, all new system. This is web-based, gives us a lot more flexibility and high quality video as well. So the total cost for this is $99,307.75. U is an annual service. This is with a new provider, but we have to have maintenance and support for our Cisco phone system, the IP phones, $7,792.92. And finally, the SysCloud agreement, this is backup and restoration support for our Gmail, cloud-based, $4,560 annually. So just wanted to be able to give a little bit more detail with that number of contracts there.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Do we have any board questions or comments on any of those items? My one question, I heard some concerns about the $5,000 being spent on the Avid keynote speaker. Was that COVID funds that we need to use up by a certain time frame, or?
I don't believe we use COVID. Nick might be able to help me with that. Professional development funds. Nick, what you remember our funding source there?
I believe we used COVID.
Okay.
We certainly could justify it because of the connection we could make.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any other board questions? Seeing none, any public questions on the consent agenda?
I have two hands up. Mike is first.
Okay, go
I'd
ahead.
like to
Mike.
make a comment on item T as in Tom. Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just, you know, with the budget where it's at and things, I find it a little frivolous that we're spending $100,000 on that. Especially when we've added a second position for a campus supervisor on that site. Here's my bigger concern is that we don't have any means to maintain it. You know, I would say our existing system probably hasn't worked for many, many, many years. I'm not going to quote, but, you know, and if you just take a look at it, the lenses are all dirty. You know, even if it was working, you wouldn't have very good quality. So I'm just wondering what the means is of how we maintain this, and so that we're not, you know, wasting our investment. You know, somebody's got to take care of that maintenance, and it comes at a cost, and nobody's done that in the past. So how are we going to facilitate that in the future? Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
And the other hand just went down, sorry.
Okay.
Well, Kathleen Burrows has a hand up.
Thank you. I was just wondering, school board members or Mr. Dolan, if at kind of the end of the meeting or at another point in the meeting, there will be kind of a running total of the amount of funds that have been spent on distance learning specific technology platforms. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other public comments on the consent agenda?
Seeing none.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Lloyd?
Aye.
Jewel?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Catlin?
Aye.
And I'm aye as well. Thank you. Motion passes. Catlin, would you take over for the two pulled items?
Sure. Tell me again, I should have written it down. Sorry, which,
E. Item E, I got
E
you
and
covered
K.
there.
okay, E and K?
Yeah,
Yep.
thank you.
Let me give you the description on E. Is we have one brand new ag teacher, and that teacher is required to go through the induction process for clearing their credential. So it's a process that everyone goes through. The the ag approach to this is a little bit different than the regular classroom, typical classroom teacher, general subject or single subject. So this is $2,250 to provide the services that are required. And again, every other teacher in need of clearing their credential also has district funded. This is a standard practice for district funded support for them to clear their credential.
Okay, so I'm going to entertain a motion. First, I open for public comment on item E, which is formerly on the consent agenda. Is there any public comment on item E?
Seeing none.
Okay, then I will entertain a motion just for item E from the consent agenda.
So move.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. We're going to do roll call vote. Jewel? Jewel, you're on mute.
Aye.
Jewel, okay. And Lloyd?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Luke?
I'm not voting on this one.
Okay, yeah, I think you have to say not voting or abstain or something from the, yeah.
Okay.
And then I as well. Okay, so motion passes, and then we'll move to item K.
Item K, yes, and item K, here's a contract for an annual professional development curriculum series attached to EL Achieve. EL Achieve is the program that we use for our English language development program. So this is for the Leadership Symposium Institute and the Leadership Seminar. 8 different individuals participate in a series of events. Total cost of the agreement is $20,000.
Okay, is there any public comment on item K?
I'm seeing none.
Okay, is there a motion on item K?
So move.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Aye. I second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Lloyd?
Aye.
Jewel?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye. Aye. Sorry.
That's all right. Luke?
Abstain.
And I as well. Motion passes. All right, now we'll return the virtual gavel to you.
The virtual gavel, I like that. Thank you. Okay, so stakeholder communications. Do we have anyone from the Citizens Oversight Committee tonight?
I don't see Tad in the meeting.
Okay, do we have any employee association reports?
I see Kathy Michaels.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can, go ahead,
Hi,
Kathy.
Kathy.
Okay. So good evening. The DTA Executive Board would like to inform the Dixon Unified School Board of a couple of things. So the first thing is DTA leadership seeks to inform its members. The org committee is holding a town hall on September the 16th to interview the candidates for the school board on the November ballot. You should be getting questions and an invite in the next couple of days if you haven't already gotten them. The DTA leadership also is continuing to work with the district to request transparency in how the federal COVID-19 monies are being spent. So we want to make sure that that's being spent in a way that makes sense. The second area is accommodations. The DTA leadership has worked with the district HR to get as many reasonable accommodations as possible. Those employees who did not get accommodations have opted to take leaves if they can afford to do so to protect their health or that of their loved ones. The third thing is safety and health protocols. DTA leadership is monitoring each site and its administration to ensure that members are working in the safety conditions outlined in the MOU. DTA members are encouraged to address any initial violation with their site administration, but repeated or unaddressed issues will be reviewed by DTA leadership with the district office. If necessary, a grievance will be filed. In terms of technology, there are some issues, but DTA leadership is monitoring the tech issues at each site and its admin to ensure the highest and most consistent internet and technology available within the Dixon budget. DTA members are encouraged to address any initial problems with an email to tech support at the district. If there are continued or site-wide issues, DTA leadership will work with the district office to resolve them. DTA members are committed to ensuring Dixon students get the best possible education during distance learning. A fifth item is scheduling. DTA leadership and members are working with site admin and will be working with the district office to iron out glitches in the schedules. There are some issues that we need to kind of work through to make sure that we keep students on track, but also provide students with regular screen breaks so that they maintain their mental and emotional and physical health. Lastly, DTA executive and committees are doing a community outreach. The leadership is working with CTA to help pass Prop 15 on the November ballot. And that's something that will help fund Dixon schools. So we would very much like the support of the district office and the board, as well as our community. And lastly, the DTA leadership and the org committee are working to increase the diversity of the people involved in DTA and in Dixon Unified School District leadership positions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kathy. Okay. Any other employee association reports?
Seeing none.
Okay. Any parent association reports?
Seeing none.
Okay, great. Let's move on to public comment. Persons wishing to introduce a topic within the subject matter jurisdiction of the district and not on the agenda may do so at this time. By law, subjects not on the agenda cannot be acted upon by the board, except to briefly respond, clarify, or refer to staff for review and presentation at a future meeting. Comments may be limited to 5 minutes per person to a maximum of 25 minutes per topic unless extended by the board president. Comments are to be directed exclusively to the governing board, and the board president shall determine who, if anyone, may respond to the comments or questions of the speaker. So if anyone would like to make public comment at this point to an item not on the agenda, please raise your electronic hand.
I'm seeing none.
Okay. Then we'll close item 10, public comment, and move on to item 11, information, discussion, and action. A1, report on the start of the 2020-2021 school year.
Thank you, Luke. We're going to change this up this evening a little bit. I've got all 6 of our principals who are on deck to give you a brief update on how things have started at their school sites. Following that, I'll have Nick, if there's anything that needs a little additional explanation, clarification, anything to add on out of the ed services world. And then I'm going to have Mark talk on some of the technology issues and any of the safety, maintenance, and operations issues, although those feel like they're pretty minimal right now. So, as you can see by looking at your screen, we're going to welcome Chantel McCammon, who's the principal of Gretchen Higgins Elementary School, to share how things have started over there first. Ms. Mack.
Hello, everyone. Good evening, board members. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. Of course, we have some positive things going on Pembroke Way, and some of those things are we have 100% parent participation on Class Dojo. So that means all 401 of my students, their families are connected to us. And when I say us, I mean every one of us at Gretchen Higgins, teachers, paraprofessionals, all of our staff. Another great highlight that we have going on, I have some amazing committed teachers and staff members that have not given up through all of the trials that we have gone through so far with participating in distance learning. They're so committed, and they're trying out all of the new professional development opportunities and skills that they've learned in their classrooms. And continuing to reach out to our families. We had 2 nights of parent information night, or you guys call it back to school night, and we had great participation there. Over 200 families participated in that, and Mr. Foster actually joined us at our 3rd grade night last night, and so thank you for coming and joining us last night. With that, we did make sure that we included live Spanish translation embedded in our presentations, which was very helpful. And we wanted to just ensure that all audiences were met. We also provided video recording of our parent information night for our families that they'll be able to access this week. Additionally, in first grade, my RTI team has really done a great job of working with grade level teams on getting in and supporting, be it calling during the A group or B group to just make sure students are on, and getting assessed and again connected. Our areas of growth, we always have them. So I think if Monique was here, she would say opportunities. We are still, of course, having our troubles with our technology, and not so much about just connectivity things, but all of us really understanding what's out there for our kids and where they are with things, and just trying to make sure that we're all staying stable in our technology environment overall. But I can honestly say that I couldn't ask for a better staff, and I couldn't ask for better families during this time. So that's what's going on at Gretchen Higgins School. And if you have any questions, just let me know.
Any board questions?
Thanks, Chantel.
Seeing none, I'll just say great third grade presentation, and I loved the way that clicked the button and it translated. That was amazing. So
Thanks.
I was
Thank
actually
you.
on for part of it last night too, but didn't have my
Oh.
whole name on the screen, so you didn't know it was me. I was like sneaking
okay.
in, yeah. And
Oh,
I
well,
thought it
thank
was
you.
I thought it was great. And you didn't get a ton of questions from parents, but your parents were, pretty interactive, and I just really enjoyed watching it. It was great. So yeah, good job.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks, Chantel, and the rest of the Husky family. I'll ask Tori Peterson, principal at Tremont Elementary, to pop on in here next.
Good evening. I just actually popped over from our last back to school night tonight. So our fourth and fifth grade were presenting. Positives that have really been working since the start of the school year, kind of echoing off of Miss Mack. All the teachers are on Dojo and are communicating with our parents. Our teachers have really been reaching out to parents to make sure students are connected, and the sync and async learning of their students. We've had really successful back to school nights. We've had them for the past 3 nights, 2 grade levels per night to span it out for parents. And we've seen over 200 parents participating, asking lots of great questions. And I think another highlight I would like to say is that our teachers have really gone above and beyond with the technology pieces, collaborating with each other, sharing with each other at the site to really build a system. So the grade levels are building upon each other. And so I really want to compliment my teachers on utilizing what they've learned in the training times and sharing that with students, really answering the parents' questions. I couldn't ask for a stronger staff on that piece. And so, pieces I think we continue to work on that are always tricky is the technology part, and just building our own depth and knowledge with the technology, because there's so many pieces out there, finding the right amount of async and sync work. And so, my teachers are really working hard, and so are the students and the parents who are just embracing it all. So, any questions?
Great, thank you, Tori. Any board questions? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Tori.
Thank you.
Tori. Next, Ray Ferris, principal over at Anderson Elementary.
Good evening, board members. I and Mr. Dolan and the rest of the administrative team that's present. Things have been going well. This second week, the first week was a little crazy. I'm trying to get our families connected and devices devices working, but our teachers at Anderson have been doing a phenomenal job. I could not be more pleased and proud of my staff in the different platforms that they're using to deliver instruction. I've been able to pop on into all of our classrooms. Our students are engaged, really engaged. I love looking at their little faces on the screen. Our teachers are really changing things up to make things exciting and to keep our kids working for the 3 hours that they're on for synchronous time. Parents are really being diligent about trying to be connected. We do have some frustrated families that still are not connected because they either live out in the country or just kind of our little Anderson area really does have some issues with the internet. It's not necessarily the strongest in our area, but I give our families props for really being persistent in trying to get that remedied. As far as our front office staff, our ladies, Debbie and Liz, are really learning a lot on how to get our families connected and hooked up or logged on into the platforms that the teachers are using. I really want to get some of our classified staff a little more training, and that's something that we're working on just so that they can help our families, as well as our parent liaison. Miss Debbie and our parent liaison, Olga, have been working diligently in calling our families that we haven't been able to get in touch with. And so we're working on that list, and it's getting smaller every single day. We did have our backpack distribution with all of the materials and all our extra supplies that went out on Monday. That went really, really well. It was super smooth. Huge kudos and a big thanks to our TPMs that are now having some different little duties to do, as well as some of the paras that before they started getting in line with what they were doing, they helped get those. We could not have done that without their help. And then, so really right now, it's just really working on getting our families connected, getting some more training for our classified staff, and then maybe some devices. Some of the older devices haven't necessarily been cooperative. And so just kind of working on those little things to really get our kids hooked up. Are there any questions?
Any board questions?
Oh, we did
Thank
have
you,
our back
Rita.
to school. We did have our back to school night on Monday too.
You know, and I apologize. I was actually going to sign in for your welcome, and I was like too late, and I looked at the clock and went, oh no, and it was too late. So I
You
apologize.
could have caught it in Spanish. So that's all right. It actually went well. You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Rita. I will invite Camila O'Connor, our new principal of C.A. Jacobs, soon to be John Knight Middle School, into the mix. Camila, welcome.
Hello, hi board, how are you? First, I just need to stop and thank the entire CAJ community. Every single staff member, parent, and student has played a vital role in the successes that we've seen the first 2 weeks of school. So starting off, our custodial staff has worked hard to make sure that our building is clean and sanitized regularly to ensure the safety of our returning teachers and staff. Our TPMs, I am convinced that we have the best TPMs in Solano County right here at CAJ. They have gone above and beyond. They have helped to answer phone calls. They have supported the needs of the front office staff. They've set up and operated our textbook and materials pickup. They are currently right now reaching out to every family who has not engaged in distance learning. And we have 610 of our students who have engaged in one way or another in distance learning, and that was only 622 that were enrolled. So there's just 12 more families that we're out there trying to get. Our front office team, Mrs. Vicky, Patricia, and Margarita, have answered phone call after phone call to ensure that our students have found their ways into their teachers' Zoom rooms and Google Classrooms. Our school nurses, paraeducators, every single person is on site just pitching in to make sure that we get through this distance learning. Our cafeteria workers are doing their job. They're out there serving kids every single day. Our TOSAs are amazing. Jake and Scott have supported our staff by ensuring that our teachers had the tools that they needed to be ready for distance learning. They're still behind the scenes working with our teachers and our students. You can see them in our classrooms, really, really supporting. Our A team, Mrs. Stuvey and Mrs. Halverson, they have worked behind the scenes tirelessly to make sure that all of the kids' schedules are getting done and being fixed. Our teachers, oh my goodness, CAJ teachers are amazing. CAJ teachers have found the most creative ways to engage students in high quality distance learning. From Wicker to PBIS strategies, when you walk into the classroom, you can see evidence-based practices the first 2 weeks of school, which is amazing. Our ELA and history department were committed to closing the technology gap, and they have committed the first 2 weeks. It is very hard for a teacher to give up 2 weeks of instruction, but they've committed the first 2 weeks of school to closing the technology gap and making sure that CAJ students are ready to handle distance learning. They're teaching them skills such as how to navigate the Zoom room, how to send an email. It is amazing what you see. And when you walk into the classes, you see true collaboration, evidence of planning, teamwork. Our slogan for the year is teamwork makes the dream work. CAJ is behind the scenes collaborating and doing everything they can to make our students' dreams come to life. I can't speak on CAJ without talking about our parents and our students. Our parents have been amazing. Our PTA welcomed staff with banners and goodie bags on the first day of school. Since then, they've been on site supporting. They've helped with our textbook drive, which was a huge success and very well organized, thanks to Mrs. Stuvey, as well as our custodial and TPMs and parents and teachers who were all on deck to support. And then I'd like to thank the parents. The parents have been trusting us with their children. We know that this is hard to do. Oftentimes I think of, especially for our 6th graders, dropping your students off to middle school, it kind of takes you back to kindergarten. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm leaving my child here. Are they going to be okay? But parents are trusting us, and you can see it. You can see their students in the classroom engaging, and it's really, really amazing. The thing that I want to say most about our parents is thank you for teaching your students to be advocates. CAJ students email me regularly with their concerns. Mrs. O'Connor, I can't find my Zoom room. I need you to help me get there. Mrs. O'Connor, can you send me some help with this? They're emailing me, they're emailing my front office staff, they're calling Vicki and Mrs. Patricia and asking for help. And it is amazing to see our students advocating in that way. When I go into the classrooms, I can tell that even if they don't want to tell you that they're happy to be back, they are. I can see it in their faces, and I've been in every single classroom. The highlight for me is our Monday morning meetups. And so I just want to encourage all of our students right now. We've seen as many as about 350 parents in our Monday morning meetups. And not parents, students in our Monday morning meetups. I email them the link directly, and on Monday they come into my Zoom room, and I really try to encourage them to get through the week and support them and be a cheerleader, just like I would if we were actually in school. I would be out there in the front of the school, shaking their hands, greeting them in the morning. That's what our Monday morning meetups are doing for our kids, so I really encourage everybody to keep doing that. In terms of room for growth, I think that we're battling with the same technological issues that everybody around the world is battling with right now, which is connectivity and bandwidth. And when you think about it, how many classes are in Zoom rooms everywhere around the world? So we're battling with just bandwidth and technology and things like that. But other than that, CAJ has been amazing. And if this is a testament to what we can do when we're not in a pandemic, I'm excited. Again, I think we've got this.
Wonderful. Thank you. Board questions.
I'm going to spend some time working with Camila and trying to develop some enthusiasm and passion.
Exactly.
Right, yeah. It's
Wonderful
just,
to hear. Thank you for
yeah.
the specific numbers with how many families we still need to reach out to. That's great to hear specific numbers and what we're doing to meet those needs. So great. Thank you.
Thanks, Camila.
Thank you.
I will invite Yvette Ramos, who is principal of our alternative education programs, into the mix now.
You with us, Yvette?
I don't see her unless she's signed in as someone else.
Okay, I'll jump to Stephanie Marquez, principal of Dixon High School then.
Hello, everybody, and thanks for having me tonight. Luke, I do not have specific numbers for you because mine's a little more touchy-feely, which might not be a surprise. I'm the proud principal of Dixon High School, and if you've ever met me before, sometimes we've been through some tough times at Dixon High School, and we all come together like nobody's business. And with distance learning, we've come together like nobody's business. Our parents absolutely on board. We've had parents sending positive emails. We've had parents asking for support. We are still focused on our mission and our basic principles that guide us. Thank goodness we have them. Our kids are the cutest things ever. First day of school, I don't think I've ever seen more kids in a classroom, attentive, waiting to be supportive and help. Our support staff, they run. They have been meeting the needs of our kids and teachers so they can do their thing. I will spare you all the football analogy I shared at our orientations about what we're doing, but basically we are building a community that supports so teachers can do their thing and kids can do their thing, and we can get them ready for college and career. A couple of thank yous is where I'd like to go now. Thank you to all of the parents that show up in the middle of their workday to support their student and work with us so that their kids can continue to learn and meet their goals. A thank you for our kids that when we saw you, when we delivered 1,100 kids worth of textbooks to them, said, hey, we miss you too. And they stood up straight and came to school. Thank you for our support staff on every level, amazing stuff. Thank you for our coaches who are chomping at the bit to coach your kids again, and we're trying to make that safe so they can do so. And our biggest thanks really goes to our team of teachers. If you've ever met teachers, they don't like to learn something new sometimes because they're really good at what they do already, and every single teacher is jumping in bravely to a whole new, and they're doing it with grace and dignity, and it's tough, and they're meeting our kids' needs. And I could not be more proud than to try to support them in any way I can as they do the work they're doing. We started the year all excited, nervous, and hopeful. There's a lot of learning going on, and I can't wait to see what happens. Our biggest tough part is going to be to remember that this is temporary. Right? It's a lot of work for everybody to remember that we will go back to a normal high school with dances and football games and interactions with kids. But right now, I'm just proud to be there. So thank you all very much.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Thank you, Stephanie. Any board questions? Seeing none. Thank you, Stephanie. Much appreciated.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah. I'm not seeing Yvette in the meeting, so I'll just a couple of summary comments there. All of those thanks and pieces of recognition that were offered by those 5 principals, absolutely justified, well earned, deserved, whatever you want to say. There's been a great response to the start of the school year. I need to also thank those leaders who just spoke to you. Everybody is doing things differently right now, including them, and they're doing it with an awful lot of drive and determination and thoughtfulness for these absolutely nutty conditions that we're working in right now. So, you know, the term being proud of people was used repeatedly there, and being so grateful for what people are doing. And we just wanted to, you know, here in this building downtown, and not out in the mix nearly as much as we want to be. It's felt like we've had a good start? And in principal meetings over the last couple of days, I've been asking that question, and what our principals are saying is that we've had a good start. Plenty of opportunity, plenty of things for us to refine and get better at, but people are working really hard. They're using things they've learned. They're adjusting and flexible and absolutely doing their best for our students. And there have been some really moving emails and communications from students expressing their gratitude to their teachers and to the staff and to their principals as well. I've now seen 4 of those come across my desk. And it's really something when you've got young people able to, I wrote one of them back yesterday and said, when a young person, well, right now we got all this noise going on around us and we're having a hard time seeing beyond our own little worlds. And here was a young person who reached out to her principal saying thank you for what you're doing and for everybody else at the school who are making the same kind of efforts. And it was just a really great gesture and reminder from someone that we should all be, while everyone is working hard and making these efforts, we should also be grateful for where we are and who we get to work with and what we're doing. So,
Ryan, I'm sorry, Yvette is here.
I see her now, yes. So I will let her have her say, and then we'll take it to Mr. Giramani after she's done. Yvette. You're muted, Mrs. Ramos. There you go. Oh, you were unmuted and.
Oh. Still muted.
We cannot hear you, Mrs. Ramos.
You're still muted, Yvette.
How's that?
You're
Can you hear me
turning
now?
off your, oh, there you go.
I hear you now, yes.
Gotcha.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
That's okay, go ahead.
Having some technical difficulties. So in alternative ed at Main Prairie High School and the Community Day School, we are moving along very nicely. Our teachers are doing an excellent job of providing some rigorous instruction to students, all the while teaching them how to use the educational and academic extensions and applications. Our attendance is fairly good, not where we'd like to be, and we are reaching out to students who we don't see on a daily basis. So that's where we are.
Great, okay.
Did you need more?
Great, thank you. Any board questions for Yvette? Seeing none. Thank you, Yvette.
You're
Much
welcome.
appreciated.
Sorry about the technical difficulties.
You're good, thank you.
We all have that. It's just
Yes, we do.
a new world.
All right, Mr. Giramani, anything you
Okay.
want to? Want to kick it to Mr. G and see if he's got anything he wants to highlight or emphasize here real quick.
Only that meeting with principals this week and is that just echoing what they were talking about, that everything has been pretty positive here to start, but we need to make sure that that continues. So we're looking to push out some surveys here. We didn't want to do them this week or even early next week because we felt like we wanted to let the dust settle and kind of see how things are going. So we anticipate early following the week after next, some surveys to families as well as staff to just get the temperature of how things are going out there with regard to distance learning. And thank you to everybody. Everyone's just doing great.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Nick. Any board questions for Nick? Seeing none.
All right, thank you, Mr. G. Mr. Monticello, I invite you to get yourself going there.
Good evening, board members, Superintendent Dolan. Before I get started with bits and bytes and numbers galore, I just want to say a couple of things. One is I truly understand we are in the people business. And this is a very tough time for everybody. Not since 1635, when the Boston Latin School was developed as the first public school in the United States, has education looked so fundamentally different. So my hat is off to every teacher who has poured countless hours of blood, sweat, and tears. And I know that it's sweat and tears from personal experience to get ready for something you couldn't grasp 6 months ago. So I truly appreciate everything that you guys have done and fought through all of the technical issues that you're having. I would like to say thank you to every teacher who has invited me into their room, and I've been into about a dozen, with open arms, all at 6 feet length, to make sure that their technology was working. And I would like to thank 2 teachers who allowed me virtually into their classroom, which had to be a very tough situation for them. I have to tell both of them that they did a wonderful job. I saw kids engaged. I saw them engaging them. And thank you for letting me join you in a what's usually a fairly private moment between teachers and students, so I could get a grasp on how things were going out there. Let's talk bits and bytes. The week before school started, we gave out just over 1,200 computers to bring our total to about 2,400. I would like to thank Audrey, Brenda, and Carmen who came out to help. I would like to thank the techs in my department that came out to help. And I would like to thank Brian. We spent a wonderful 24 hours in those 3 days. Whether he said so or not, I think it was cathartic for him, because seeing our kids and our parents is what we're about. Since that time, we haven't kept track, but I think we have either replaced or given out about another 300 computers during our office hours at the district office and at the sites. We've configured just over 250 hotspots and giving out about 205 so far. I will tell you, I had a heartfelt meeting with Brian this morning and let him know that I was a little stressed lately. And I thought, maybe the number of tickets we have might be a little higher than usual. So I did some digging. Since the 18th of August, we have closed 817 tickets. Normally I stand before you and tell you we've closed 80, 100, 120. Just to go back, in the beginning of school, we have more tickets, obviously, as we need to configure things and put them back together. That same period last year was 354 tickets, and 2 years ago was 312. As I try to tell everybody, we used to support about 180 teachers and another 150 staff members technology-wise. That number grew to 3,000 students and their guardians overnight. So thank you for every teacher who has taken a call during school, and I know damn well after school, to support a kid and or their parents to get online. Thank you to Brian, who spent an hour with a parent to try to get her into email, which is something she's never seen before during our handing out of computers. I haven't kept track of the people who have come in that we have fixed hotspots and or computer problems that have been going on. I'm thinking it's somewhere a little over 300 in the last week. I want to talk about connectivity and network issues. So the good news is we're not alone. This is not a Dixon problem. It's not even a rich area versus a poor area problem. Cupertino, Palo Alto, Atherton are all having the same problems we are. Doesn't make them any better, but they are all having the same problems. So what we have done, and here I'll give you some numbers, there are 6.3 million students in the state of California. If my math is right, and looking at those counties that have purple designation, 80% of those students are online right now. Never was it the internet designed to handle that. That doesn't include our 2.1 million community college students. I could not find an accurate number for four-year college students. I'm going to assume it's less than 2.1 million, all online simultaneously. When you add on top of that, every parent or person who is working from home, our superhighway has become a dirt road. We are a little fortunate at the school district that our bandwidth cannot be used by anybody else. We have a dedicated fiber from us to the Solano County Office of Education. When you are sitting in your neighborhood and all of your neighbors are on wave, while you may think I have 100 megabits or 200 megabits or a gig because that's what I pay for, I can guarantee you wave doesn't have enough to handle everybody at their maximum. So there is throttling. As I sit in a committee with the coordinators for every district in the state, I am seeing this over and over and over. Outages from Wave, from Comcast, from AT&T, and it's not a California thing, it's nationwide. We just don't have the bandwidth, and it's very similar to overselling tickets on an airplane, and the companies have done that. And now the time has come when everybody's using it. Again, I will remind everybody, just like Stephanie did, I'm hoping this is temporary, less temporary than others, but when we get back, I think things will certainly be better. We are looking at addressing some of our connectivity needs out in the district at homes. It doesn't look like our cellular hotspots are meeting the needs as well as we thought. It's not unusual for districts to put buses out so that they can cover an area with high-speed internet. We are looking at that, looking at increasing the speed over at the Migrant Center. At the same time, if you are a teacher in the district and you are in the district at work, please connect your computer to your Ethernet cable instead of wireless. It is going to be more steady and faster than the wireless. While I talk about that, fortuitously enough, last November we applied for E-rate, which is a federally funded program. 3 days ago, we got our funding letter. So between now and the end of this calendar year, we will be upgrading all of our switches at our school site and all of our wireless, so they no longer run at 100 megs, but they will run between 300 and 500 megs. We're currently in the process of purchasing more netbooks for students, Chromebooks, and newer teacher computers to be used throughout the district. And I know that Kathleen had asked about COVID funds, and that's one of those COVID fund items that we'll be using. I am sorry, I apologize for any teacher that has to take attendance. It's no longer just mark them once. We've got A, we've got B, we've got asynchronous, and we've got synchronous. I have seen 6-page documents from districts on how teachers need to take attendance. So I apologize for that. I wish I could tell you it's going to be different. It's not. That is out of our control. But we will fight through this just like you're fighting through everything else. I believe that when we were looking at the way we communicate with parents, we got a bill upgrade from Aries Communication last spring that topped just over 13,000. When I looked at the dozen or so teachers that used it, that didn't seem like a good investment. So we looked at things that teachers are using. Obviously, Class Dojo is one of them. The other is Remind. So we as a district went with Remind. And I just wanted to let you know, I got an update from Keith today. The export scripts are complete. The upload process is working. He's currently working with Remind support to confirm all import files are correctly formatted and without errors. Once they are free of errors, a text message will go to every parent to opt into the system. And he will continue cleaning those up as we move along. I will let you know that As of the week between the 24th and 30th of August, we had 76 teachers using it because they were already using it from a previous time. Instead of the free version, we now have the district-wide license. It looks like we had 35 teachers from the high school, 13 from CAJ, 6 from Maine Prairie, and the rest from the elementary schools. We sent out a total of 1,192 messages during that week. So the move to Remind was driven by the fact that a lot of our teachers were using it already, and it seemed to be a very good communication tool so that parents weren't checking emails. They tend to check text messages more. I would like to thank our custodial staff, our maintenance staff, and our ground staff who has been woefully unmanned on trying to keep things up and ready and getting our schools ready for our teachers to come back. I would also like to thank the carpenters who have done a ton of work over the summer to make sure that we are ready for school. That is enough statistics. I want to remind you that I could spout them all night long, but the fact is we're in the people business and we need to do a better job making sure our kids are connected. So first and foremost, our teachers, make sure you're wired in. Secondly, as much as this may drive you crazy, video takes precedent over audio. So you might have to have those kids that have lower bandwidth turn their video off so they can hear you and you can hear them. So I will take any questions right now. And I see Mike has his hand up.
Board questions?
Oh, sorry, board questions first, sorry.
Yeah, board questions. We'll take public comment at the end.
So
Any
Mike,
board questions? No, we'll come back to public comment at the very end of the presentation.
Okay.
Okay, seeing no board questions then. Thank you, Mark.
You bet.
Okay, Brian.
Yeah, that's all we wanted to present tonight. Trying to, yeah, we other departments we will provide updates at other times. We wanted to give the principals in particular a chance to share. You know, Mark talked about being stressed out, and while the act of teaching is the most important thing that happens in any school at any point in time, whether in person or distance. Right now, we're so dependent, so stinking dependent on devices and networks and everything else. And going from, you know, like you said, 200 or so users to 3,000 in the drop of a hat is really something. And, you know, we through maintenance and operations at Mark in the spring, as well as the IT work, and he hasn't blinked, and he has worked really, really hard. He cares very deeply. Yeah, he wants this all to be perfect. And it can't be. Some of it's beyond our control, but of everybody who's on my team right now, who deserves a little bit of a shout out and pat on the back, it's Mark. And he won't be at work tomorrow, so please don't anybody look for him. He's got a wedding for one of his kiddos in a couple weeks, so he'll be at home painting his ceiling tomorrow instead. getting ready for some guests. So Mr. Monticello, thank you. Thank you to everybody, obviously, but thank you, Mark, for your extra efforts right now. So. And that's all I got, Luke. So if we have questions or comments, we're happy to take those on now.
Okay, any board questions or comments? Okay, let's open up to public comment.
I have Mike first.
I was just concerned when Mark said something about the hotspots not working like they should. You know, I know we ordered a batch and we had, I thought we had simulated a test and then we'd ordered more. So I'm concerned we spent money on something that's not working and we own those. little concerned about that. I also thought he was advocating for a maintenance manager, but maybe I misread that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, next.
Jeanette up next.
Hi, good evening. I just thought it would be really important to come in and make it publicly known that the high school teachers do not currently have grade books established. I was just concerned with how some information was falsely spread in the spring about what was going on, and I didn't want any parent to misunderstand why they didn't have grade books in Aries yet. And I know it's something they're working on, but I just felt it was important to publicly state that so any parents in the audience would know that it's not due to teachers not doing that. And then the second point is, and I addressed this through email and I didn't get responses. I just wanted to say publicly, I wanted to say this 2 weeks ago, but I was evacuated due to the fires and couldn't get in on the meeting. But I really feel like Catlin needs to apologize to the teachers for that email she sent out. It was really harmful and hurtful. And to have a parent come on and say that he had thought teachers were being lazy, it really hurts. And when you hear all these principals say how hard we've been working, and I'm still at school, I can't turn my camera on, I'm still at school right now. I haven't been home before 7 any day this school has started. And I just feel like that really needs to happen. So I didn't get my response addressed in an email, so I figured I would just bring that up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kathleen up next.
Thank you. This is unplanned, but I want to echo Jeanette's sentiments. I've been spending 4 to 6 hours daily to create lesson plans, and that's not including responding to emails from students. And so the main reason for raising my hand was because I really want to implore our district to reinstate its contract with Aries Communication. I understand that there is an ease of accessibility and an ease of use with Remind because so many of our parents are more comfortable with communicating via text. However, Remind is not, in my opinion, as ease of use friendly for teachers. I like being able to use, I like being able to use Aries Communication because I can go on, produce a message, and select that it's sent home via voicemail, sent home via an email, and also sent home via text. And the most important reason why I want to advocate so strongly that we reinstate as soon as possible, using especially our CARE Acts funds, that we reinstate our contract with Aries Communication is a matter of equity. With Remind, it's an opt-in service. And furthermore, we have a population of students that many of their parents, their primary correspondence language is not English. So how are they going to access information on how to use Remind? The beauty of Aries Communication is that it would automatically translate any type of communication, be it voicemail, email, or text message, into this, the parent's preferred language. And so I just want to make sure that we are supporting all of our students by making sure that there is an equitable approach in communicating with their parents and guardians. And to me, an opt-in approach to communicating with parents is not equitable, and it's not conducive for our current situation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is Sheila up next?
Hi, Mark, funny you should mention attendance. I'm sitting here going on hour 2 of my attendance. It's no joke, you were right. So I want to say a couple things. First of all, I want to echo what Kathleen said. As many of you know, I sent out mass emails to all of my parents on Sunday afternoon on the Aries email system that we were given. It's not Aries Communication. And they still have not reached the parents, and they still have not given me confirmation that they've been sent 4 days later. So so if any of my parents are listening out there, or any secondary parents, I don't want you guys to misunderstand our silence. We're working 14-hour days. And an easy way of communication is a mass email in the beginning to introduce ourselves, to send you our syllabi, to send you our remind code, that to send you any parent surveys. And I'm so disheartened that our parents might think that we don't care about their kids. That's just the opposite. My hands have been tied. I want Aries communication back. And I hope that we will spend the money to get that. I agree with Kathleen, remind is not a substitute. Aries communication, I could customize my voice. I could send like a customized robocall home so they could hear my voice. It translated everything. It was just such a rich system. Another thing is many of the teachers don't have the import from Google Classroom button in Aries yet. So we can't even import any grades yet. And this was the same thing I talked about from the spring. I had to hand type thousands and thousands of grades because I was not given that access. We have that same problem. Some teachers have the button and can easily import grades, and some do not have the button. I want to give a shout out to parents and students who I can see every day are stressed out of their minds. I want to give a huge shout out to our teachers. I'm very worried about the mental health of my colleagues. I'm worried about my own mental health. We're barely hanging on. We're working all hours, day and night, taking attendance for hours, doing lesson plans. It is exhausting. We have Zoom fatigue already. Our eyes feel fried from the screens. I am very concerned about our mental health and how we're going to hang on here. So if there's any way that we could lessen this attendance responsibility or anything else, I would greatly appreciate it. I appreciate everybody's support. Mark, you've gotten a lot of tech tickets from me, so I appreciate it. And any help that anyone can give us. Me and my colleagues and I, and parents and students, I'm very concerned. So I know that we're in a pandemic and we can't, and I'd rather be home than be in class with my students right now because it's not safe. But at the same time, the schedule that we've been given to be on Zoom with for 5 hours a day for secondary, 3 hours, and then teach elementary 6 hours a day, it's just not sustainable. So I'd really like to discuss the possibility of changing to maybe a block schedule or changing something. Otherwise, teachers are going to be dropping, students are going to be dropping, and parents and families are already dropping. I talked to a mom today, she already can't handle this. So I'm very concerned. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I see John Marsh is here. I'm wondering if that's John.
Hi, good evening. Thanks for giving me an opportunity. First, I want to say thank you to all the teachers and the admins for this humongous task of getting the school year going. I know you guys are working so hard, so thank you so much. I just want to talk a little bit about the tech side of things and the challenges that are going on. Just to respond to some things that were said earlier, it was said, all of California is going to be in the same boat because, and there is some truth to that we're all going to have some challenges based on the fact that the internet's going to get saturated to a point. But to think that we're all in the same boat is pretty unrealistic, given that we're a tiny town. We don't have the infrastructure that some places have. So the places that have Google Fiber, Silicon Valley, places like that, they're not going to be having the same issues that we're having here. I'm glad to hear that new computers are being bought and switches are going to be being upgraded. That's a very good thing. But the question is, why is it being done during the school year when we could have been prepping for this earlier? So my wife's an elementary school teacher. My kids are in middle school and high school here in the district. So I'm hearing these frustrations, their frustrations on a daily basis on both sides of this issue. And so just some of the things that are coming up regularly. Teachers are having trouble sharing videos. So there are some kids that'll see them, other kids won't. There are times where they can't share their screens, so they're trying to instruct their kids and they can't use their screen sharing capacity to make it easier. The students are constantly unable to hear, whether it's because of internet or whatever, but because of this inability to hear, my wife has been having to speak, our natural reaction when people can't understand what we're saying is to speak louder. And so every day she's coming home with a hoarse voice. So we ended up going and buying her a headset so that she would not have to raise her voice as much. We ended up buying her a second monitor. During the summer, it was said, oh, well, they've got projectors in their classroom. They'll just use the projectors as their second monitor. Well, it's really difficult to place that projector in a way that makes it useful. And then the fan, and once that projector gets going a little bit, that fan gets so loud, it's going to make it so the students can't understand what the teacher's saying. So we bought a second monitor. Question is, when is the school going to start providing these things? When's the district going to start providing these things to help the teachers? Because the new computers are great, but that's just part of it. There's all the peripherals that are needed to do this well. Let's see. Another thing that the teachers, I think, really need is access to a device that is like the one the students have, because when they need to help their student find something, if they don't have a device, they can't take a look and say, oh, that button's here. That button, like their kids' devices are different than what the teachers are working on, which makes it very challenging for them to instruct the kids well or to create instruction that helps the kids find what they need on those computers. And of course, just the internet access in general. So this passes over onto what the kids are having to deal with, where my house has great internet, but we're using the provided Chromebooks because I want my kids to be on a device so the teacher knows that all the kids are on the same device, right? So that they
How are you doing? It's me. I figured I'd call you. I've stuff to my face and I'm in my gym.
Hello. So our children with the internet are finding that it's not that great a connection, right? So the Wi-Fi connection to those computers, while we can have our other laptops in the house right next to it and their Wi-Fi connection is great, these provided Lenovo's really don't connect that well to the home Wi-Fi, and my home network is very robust. So what I'm hopeful is that you guys have some plans in place to help improve all of these situations. And again, thank you for all of the hard work you guys are doing. We really appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
I have Tanya up next.
Hello, thanks everybody for giving me a moment to share my thoughts. I want to echo my colleagues that have spoke up about the equity issue in terms of Remind. I agree it's not a replacement for Aries Communication. I was a teacher that did use Aries Communication regularly and found it very effective in reaching parents and families when all other forms of communication were not able to reach them. I also want to echo concerns about the physical and mental health of teachers. I'm working the same long hours as my colleagues. I come home every night and have to ice my neck from the time I get home until the time I go to bed. I am fearful that my neck or my back is going to go out and I'm then going to have to get a sub. I've already had an experience this week where my daughter ended up in the hospital. I had to get a sub. There are no subs available. And so that was something that we were told was being taken care of. We were told that training was being given to subs. I was laid off in the spring, and on the rehire list up until a few days before school started, I was on the sub list. I was never contacted about any training for subs. That did not happen. I couldn't get a sub when my daughter was in the hospital. So my colleagues had to take my classes, which meant that they were teaching on Zoom for their entire day. They did not get to have a prep period, which is such critically precious time for us teachers when we are literally breaking our backs to do all that we can for these students. I would really like to see and hear what is going to be done so that teachers, when they need subs, which they will, because this type of physical labor and mental labor is not sustainable, what is going to be done? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone
Any more
else
public
on
comment?
report on? Sorry?
I don't see any more public comment.
Okay. Let's, Brian, would you like to address any of those areas that were brought up?
Yeah, let me take a broad swipe at, well, yeah, a really broad swipe first. And that is that there's not any element of what we're trying to do right now that isn't being looked at, discussed, reviewed, considered. We have nothing carved in stone about what we're doing right now, how we're trying to handle things, any of those ideas. So the calls for, can you please consider this? Have you thought about doing that? Are not only legitimate, they are very welcomed by us. There's a whole bunch of people working very hard in terms of trying to respond to the concerns that come to us right now, those being from staff, those being from parents, and those being from students as well. So I want to make sure that people understand that we are not turning a blind eye or not listening to things coming our way. We are. I think you can gather again from tonight that, you know, the technology issues in their many and various forms really are the biggest concern that we've got going right now. And so there are, you know, sites are finalizing, if they haven't already, their tech requests to support their staff. Ed services people are working on the same kinds of things. Some of them are as simple as that extra piece of equipment, the headset, or a second monitor. Others of them are things that alleviate some of those physical demands. I don't know these products myself, but some lighting things and some things to put on a screen to make them less harsh to look at, and those types of things as well. So that work is underway, and we will be, you know, there's purchasing happening right now for more teacher devices, purchasing happening right now for more student devices, but the wide variety of needs are also being planned for. Those purchases will be made really quickly. The piece around communicating with parents is critical for us, and Mark and his team have been working on it hard all week long. We will take a hard look back at the Aries communication restoration potential. You know, if it's something that hasn't been used extensively in the past, it's easy to accept isn't the right word, but understand why perhaps that had been dropped. If there's a current greater demand for its use, then we need to listen to that and look at the prospect of restoring that. The truth is, we have to provide our staff with every means possible that can be used to communicate with families, period, full stop. So we will be looking at that issue in the early part of next week, and what we can do there. So those are my broad things, Luke. If there are other pieces you picked up that you'd like me to address specifically, I'd be happy to do so.
Are there any other board questions before I bring up mine? Melissa, did you have something?
Well, what's the attendance responsibility that's taking a long time? Is that just calculating, or yeah, what is that?
So, and I can let Mark clarify some of this. So we have to do what's called positive attendance. So the model, except in alt ed, forever has been you mark the children who are absent.
Right.
So the default is you open up Aries and there's your class, and you make the clicks on the 3 kids out of 30 who are absent that day. And because of the requirements from the state, we're now in a positive attendance model for this distance learning. And so you actually have to go through and mark every student present instead of marking the few kids absent. And you now have both synchronous and asynchronous learning time. So you can imagine if you're seeing, you know, in the elementary world, this is much more manageable, although it's still certainly more challenging than in the past. But if you're teaching 5 periods in the secondary setting, it's a lot of clicks. There is no denying it. And there is a scurry around the state trying to find out alternative ways to do this that are less time consuming and demanding of teachers' time. It is, you know, it's just horrifying to think of staff having to spend hours dealing with attendance of everything that's important. And yes, we have to have the accountability, but boy, that's not really productive time for our staff to be engaged in. So again, conversations happening around the state about ways that could be addressed, both in terms of the reporting requirements, and we're going to be audited on this particular issue very, very closely, but also the technology components. Can Aries come up with something that makes this easier and still meets the requirements, right? So it's both what's the policy practices established from the state, and how can a student information system provider like Aries make this easier to do? So there's no quick answer for this. And like Mark said, 6 pages, 5-6 pages of directions on how to do attendance, it's just not good.
Can I ask another question about the asynchronous learning and the attendance that's being taken? Are students, so say there was an assignment for a 0 period class that was at 7:30 and they did it a little bit later, are they still being marked there, or are they being marked absent if the assignment's still done that day but not at that exact class period of time?
Yeah, one of the elements of this is that so in normal attendance procedures, end of the day, teachers had lost their opportunity to make any changes into the attendance for that day. You have a 7-day period now in which teachers can make adjustments in attendance. So that does provide some flexibility around if the student got it done at another time, the evidence that they had done that in, asynchronous task or tasks, you do have the opportunity to make a change in how that has been coded at that point. Yeah.
The question I'd like to bring up is about the question of subs.
Mm-hmm.
How are we gonna fix that?
Yeah, and I'll have Cindy add on if I miss anything. So we have reached out to all of the substitute teachers on our sub list. We have determined who is interested in continuing to work with us. That's been, first it was emails and then phone conversations with all of those individuals. We informed them that we are working in an in-person model. So if they want to substitute for us, that they do have to come in and work from the campus that they would be covering that class for. Admittedly, we have not been able to get those folks in for Google Classroom training yet, or any other supports that they need. The focus has been on providing the first support levels of support for our students and teaching staff. So it is a priority area for us. And please, Cindy, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Brian, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just wanted to clarify. We actually did send out an invitation to all of our substitute teachers after they confirmed that they wanted to opt in to be active this year. They were offered the Google Classroom training just like our regular teachers did. It's a self-paced self-guided training over 15 hours worth if they did all of the different sessions that was available to them. They were also offered Zoom training, including some of the trainings that was offered from Ed Services. And they're currently submitting timesheets in right now so that we could get them paid.
Great. Some things happen around here that I don't know about, and it's really nice when they're good things. So
How many subs have we had say that they want to opt in, Cindy?
Right now, we have about 55 of our subs from last year that are currently active on our list. And we're still continuing to onboard any new applicants. We onboarded 2, and they're actually in long-term assignments now since they've received the training. So I want to say we're at 57 now.
Okay, thank you. Any other board questions? Brian, I don't think we should spend the time to go into a lot of detail, but there was a question brought up about the trouble sharing videos on some of the computers. And I know you've sent out some updates about some of those technological issues that we have and we're working through. Do you want to just very quickly talk about some of that?
I'll have Mark very quickly talk about that. I have recently proven that I don't know all the details about everything. So,
okay, so on Tuesday morning on our website, there will be a new button for tech needs for parents and or teachers. Our biggest issue we're having right now with videos is the bandwidth. So while our teachers are taking time to create these videos, not all of our students have the ample bandwidth to get those, sorry, I'm admitting somebody, to get those videos and play them properly. We've had a couple of different things that we're working through. Sometimes it's a clearing cache to get that stuff. Sometimes it's doing from some different settings to get the videos, but we will have a battery of issues and their answers on the website Tuesday morning.
Okay, thank you, Mark. That's all the issues I saw that I think needed to be responded to. So if no board members have any other additional ones, we can go ahead and move on to item 11A2, RGA Amendment number 1.
Great. So Lee Coop from School Site Solutions is here to help address this extension of contract and amendment to the contract with RGA. So good evening, Lee.
Evening.
Please.
Thank you. Superintendent Dolan, good evening, and good evening, board members, President Foster, and members of the community and staff. My name is Lee Coop from School Site Solutions, and we assist the district with the facilities program, particularly Measure Q, and other issues, projects as well as program. This is a pivot away from everything important that you've been speaking about in the meeting. So it's definitely important, but truly appreciate all the discussion I've heard and the efforts that everybody's making. This is behind the scenes of facilities projects that continue to go on amidst all of this. And part of it is this issue of Division of State Architect legacy closeouts. It's an interesting issue, maybe for some, but previously you as a board approved a $5,000 contract with Rainforth Grau Architects, RGA. They are part of the pool, board approved pool of architects for the district. And RGA is assisting the district and myself on doing legacy closeouts. The Division of the State Architect has identified throughout the state several, almost 20,000 projects that have been, these are old facility projects and some very old that didn't complete paperwork. It does not mean that these projects were incomplete, unsafe, shouldn't have been occupied, none of that. It's just merely paperwork, like as if you have a building permit and you walk away and didn't get it finalized, but the contractor did all the work in your house. So that happens a lot. This is the same type of thing. So there's a process and procedure that architects need to do to help us with Division of State Architect. The district we identified 19 projects without certification. Not an atypical number. It's a substantial number, but I have part of the backup, part of the agenda is a list of those projects. So you see those, and they're at every site, and they are, yes, even at, I think, every site. And there you can see a variety of years. So they go back, way back, 30 years or more, and some of them are more recent. So this item is an extension to the contract. Unfortunately, I think by accident, we have the wrong proposal as part of your backup. This was the original $5,000 contract. The extension is the same scope of service, but it's for $25,000. So this is a not to exceed amount. They bill the district by hourly. And basically there's a lot of detective work that's involved. And I want to thank Stephanie Arias and Mark Monticello at the district who have helped me do this detective work by getting into the archives, looking at past history of files, looking at past history of projects, digging into people's memories. And because as you know, there's a lot of staff that has changed, they've retired, everything else. And so it's been an interesting process. We are, RGA successfully was able to get a very difficult one. I wouldn't say it's completely finally closed out, but it was enough to allow the JKMS window and kitchen project to move forward. A lot of coordination with LPA, the architects, a lot of coordination with DSA. And so it's an interesting process that has to happen. And interesting process with the agency and with the district and various projects. So this is an extension. Would recommend its approval, and I would take any questions.
Board questions? See none. So Lee, is this is for all known projects that are not closed out in the district right now?
Well, what I can tell you, I always tell consultants and myself included, I don't like nickel and diming a district, but I'm kind of keeping it on a short leash right now. I've got 25,000, a total of 30,000 that we're asking for. I predict that won't be enough, frankly. So some of them are what RGA folks would call low-hanging fruit, can be picked off pretty easily. Others of them are more difficult. So it's a real hard thing to say. We know that these are the 19 projects that I believe I could say 99% this is a definitive list. But we just don't know how much time it actually takes to close out each one.
Right, and I understand that other things can come up, but as of right now, this is all the unclosed projects we're aware of.
Correct.
Is that true?
Correct.
Okay, and is this a proper use of Measure Q funds?
Absolutely.
Even the one for CA Jacobs?
Absolutely. As you can tell, there are, it's really a facilities program issue. Sometimes those projects that it may say CA Jacobs, but it actually delves into other schools as well. And so I can say pretty confidently, I mean, there's one, really there's none, there's one at CA Jacobs that could be by itself that possibly would say, well, okay, I would say that it needs to be happening and Measure Q is appropriate for it. But if we wanted to take that off the Measure Q funding, we could look at that. All the other ones are either Measure Q or a mixture.
Okay.
Luke,
any other board
might,
questions?
Yes.
Go ahead, Lloyd.
I really believe that DSA has overreached their boundaries. I mean, if they're going back 20, 30, 40 years to close out projects, shame on them. We need to go to the legislature and change their rules, because these are public funds. You know, Measure Q are public funds that we're wasting on chasing something that may have happened 40 years ago, for God's sake. And that's a disgrace. And there must be millions and millions of dollars in the K-12 system in California that are tied up chasing these goblins and ghosts that DSA has proposed. And I, for one, don't like it. I would rather spend the money on facilities or teachers or other things that help kids succeed than to fatten the wallets of the DSA. And that's all I'm going to say.
Thank you, Lloyd. Anyone else? Any other board comments? Okay. I mean, it's legally required that we close out.
Yeah, if I can make a comment. Mr. McCabe, I absolutely agree with you. And everyone does agree with you on this. When this came out as an issue, frankly, it was done by a public advocacy group that dug up this. And I think with good intentions, they opened up a can, they opened up a can of worms. And DSA is not, there's no fattening of the wallet of DSA, but definitely there are people like myself and architects who need to be compensated to help districts do this. The stick that DSA holds is they will not allow projects to move forward. For example, on Anderson, we have an upcoming modernization project. No project could move forward if you don't close out all these projects at Anderson. That's just pure and simple. And I agree with you, Mr. McCabe. Yes, people tried to get this changed, many people over the years, and it has gotten better. At first, DSA took the position that we were the bad guys. Districts were the bad guys. They did this on purpose. What's the problem? They have softened up and realized that these are paperwork issues, clerical issues, districts that have many projects and they move forward because they are trying to serve kids, and then they leave the paperwork behind. So it's, I would say that right now DSA is as helpful as they can be, and they do have an attitude of trying to help these closed out. Believe me, they could take the attitude of being very hard on everyone, but I believe they have the positive attitude that we are partners in this together. But pretty much they, just like, again, I'll go back to a building permit. Legally, you're supposed to close out and final your building permit. So that's, and oftentimes that doesn't happen until maybe you're trying to sell your home, right? Or you're trying to get another permit. So it comes up, that's the stick that a city might have to get you to final out your building permit for something you did at your home, remodeled your kitchen or something like that. This is the same kind of thing. But I believe that we're doing the best we can, and definitely RGA is a great group, architect group to be doing this. They do it in the most cost efficient and effective method possible. And I'm very, very pleased with the results on that. So totally agree with you. Wish it could change. Maybe it will in future.
Okay, thank you. Any other board questions? Okay, let's open for public comment then. Public comment on this issue.
I have Stephanie up next.
Hi, this is Stephanie Roop. I'm a teacher at Tremont Elementary School. I've been teaching in the district for 16 years. I was trying to hit my raise the hand button earlier on, but with my kids, we work on mute and I couldn't find the raise the hand button earlier. So I was wondering if I was able to make a comment at this time about distance learning, or is that not available?
Are we going to have this same topic, the update for distance learning next on the next meeting as well?
We've got it as a standing item, yeah. Until you tell me to take it off the agenda, we would come back with it every meeting.
So Stephanie, we've closed public comment on that issue. Can it wait till the next meeting, or is it something very urgent that you want to?
I mean, I think what everybody's saying is valid and urgent. It's disheartening to think I'll have to wait 2 more weeks for my voice to be heard. I don't know if that's the case, then so be it. I'm hoping that you'll make an exception.
Okay,
Luke,
go ahead.
I just wanted you to know that I got another message from a teacher saying that they had their hand raised and that they weren't called on. So maybe we can close, but maybe we can close out this subject before we reopen.
Yeah, let's
back
do
the
that
other
and
one.
we'll reopen. That's a good idea.
Okay.
Okay, we'll reopen
So do you want me
it
to put my hand back up? I'll put my hand back up then.
Sure, that'd be great. Thank you. Okay,
Thank
are there
you.
any comments on, no problem. Are there any comments on the RGA amendment number 1?
No.
Any public comments on the RGA amendment?
I have Tanya up next.
My comment was back to the distance learning, just a quick thing that I forgot to say earlier.
We're going to go back to that. Right now, we're just going to try to close out this side. Thank you, Tanya.
Mike wants to go.
Mike, are you on the RGA amendment?
Of course I am. Come on, don't be silly.
Okay.
Go I want to
ahead.
thank Lee Coop for her shout out to Stephanie Arias. She is really an underappreciated staff member at this district. So I really appreciate that. She's been put with a lot of work on this project on top of what she normally does. I agree with Lloyd. If you need somebody that's really loud, just shoot me the address for DTA. I can make a drive down there. I had a question on the files. One of them says 4/20 of 2010 and it says Dixon High. Is that old Dixon High? I mean, it's kind of the same timeline of, I don't know. I think we did that in 2012. I don't remember actually. But I just wanted to clarify that that's all old Dixon High. And I'm wondering, are we taking, no one really oversees this for the district's part. Are we taking measures so that this will not be a problem for any projects we're currently working on so that we don't have these issues down the road? Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Any other questions or comments on RGA amendment number 1?
Luke, is it okay if I answer those? They could be quick answers to Mike.
Well, let's see if there's any others, because I suspect Mike's probably the only one, and then we'll.
Yeah.
I do not see any others.
Okay, so let's close public comment. Go ahead, Lee.
Sure, 2 quick ones. Thank you for that question. Yes, it's the old Dixon High. There's 3 projects listed. It's the old Dixon High, which is JKMS. And the second question is, yes, this will not happen again because the only thing that was good that came out of this was that DSA changed their procedures. So now they do something in real time. They close out things in real time, and so it can't happen again. So I think we're good with that.
Okay, thank you, Lee. So this is an action item. Do we have a motion to approve RGA amendment number 1?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Lloyd?
Aye.
Jewel?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Catlin?
Aye.
And I'm aye as well. Motion passes. Thank you.
Lee.
Thank you, Lee. Okay, 11A3, Resolution 20-1636.
Would you like to take that one first or jump back to the?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Let's jump back first to the start of the school year before we start that one. So yeah, if you didn't get a chance to comment because you couldn't get your hand up or whatever, go ahead and raise your hand and we'll come back to that now.
I have Stephanie up next.
First of all, I want to thank you guys for going back. Brian, thank you. Melissa, thank you for agreeing to do that too. It's huge, and I so greatly appreciate not having to wait 2 more weeks. I want to start with some other thank yous. I want to thank Mark. He sat in on a 1st grade Zoom, and he got to see some little 6-year-olds navigating the system and doing some learning. So I thank him for participating in that. I also want to say that I have a daughter who's a junior in the high school. She's very happy in her classes. Her teachers are fabulous. So I want to make sure that's being said as well. I also would like to say I have some concerns. I have fabulous parents. I teach 25 little first graders every day. They come, they're so excited to be there. They do the work that's asked of them. The schedule that is asked of us as teachers is daunting. I teach 3 hours in the morning, 3 hours in the afternoon, and I push out 2 hours of asynchronous work a day. That is equivalent to 8 hours of work. That does not include the communication and tech support I provide my parents on a daily basis, as well as looking at the work my children provide and making sure that I provide them thoughtful comments on everything they submit to me to let them know that I'm engaged in thinking about them from afar, because I don't get to see them. I also want to say that the tech situation for our kids is super, super tricky. We've received Acer and HP netbooks, I was told. So often the sound doesn't work. The kids have headphones on, and if they want to speak to us, they have to unplug the headphones, and that's super tricky. I think that if we were going to put a schedule together for primary children, it would have been super thoughtful to have primary people involved in that process, and it did not happen. We are doing the best we can, and I think we're doing a fabulous job, but we are drowning, and we need to have things looked at, not only to support the staff, but also these children and parents that have to work with their children on a daily basis. The attendance issue, that's tricky as well. Even though it's not 5 periods a day I have to do attendance for, I still have to do attendance for async work, my A group, my B group. It's daunting, and it can't be done just on Aries. I have to have a separate spreadsheet that I then transport everything into Aries. It's just not something that is super feasible to do, as well as changing the whole entire reading and math curriculum to be engaging for a virtual reality for these children. And so if at all possible, I'd like those points to be looked at and taken into consideration. My parents have been fabulous. They have stepped up, they have gone above and beyond, but it's tricky for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Ryan up next.
Before we go on to the next speaker, could I ask anyone that, hold on, before we go on, could we ask that if everyone please turns off their video until it's their turn to speak, just so we have fewer distractions. Thank you. Okay, go on to the next speaker.
I have Ryan up next.
Thank you. I didn't get a chance to speak before because someone actually spoke on the same topic, but I'm still not comfortable with the answer to the sub issue. I mean, we're being told there's 57 subs, yet she couldn't get a sub. And I have a dying family member, so I know I'm going to be going out soon. And that for a significant amount of time. I want to know that my second graders are going to be in good hands. We've been working, like Stephanie said, we've been working so hard to get these kids engaged. Teaching them Google Classroom to the subs is not enough. We don't use just Google Classroom. We use Class Dojo, we use Clever, we use Benchmark, we use Think Central. A sub cannot come in and teach my class. They won't know what they're doing, and I don't want to give them busy work if I'm gone for at least a week. So I think we need to find a better solution for subs across the board. To say we have 57, but we couldn't fill one position makes me nervous. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kathleen up next.
I want to echo what Stephanie said in thanking the board to allow us to readdress some concerns or afford people the opportunity to speak again or for the first time regarding the opening of the school year. I have 2 points to make to hopefully address Melissa's question about what constitutes the involvement of taking attendance. From a secondary standpoint, what I have to do, and I believe my colleagues are in the same boat, and I'm sure Sheila Hurd will be speaking to this in greater detail in a few moments, but from a secondary standpoint, what I have to do on the asynchronous days for my students, I have to go through and check that they've completed all of their asynchronous assignments in order to determine whether or not they were engaged or disengaged, and that's on top of the regular attendance that I have to take I don't have a second monitor, so I am moving around the different portions of my Zoom screen like chess pieces. And, you know, it is a very daunting process. On average for attendance, it takes me about an hour every day. I'm working toward whittling it down, but nonetheless, in addition to the lesson planning, in addition to the hour plus time I'm spending on emails, and then in addition to the 6 hours that I'm on campus teaching, I have to spend that amount of time on attendance. But to go back to the tech concerns, you know, Mark, your compassion is palpable, but also your stress. And I just want to say that, you know, as a teacher, I really appreciate the compassion that's coming through. But I also have to let you know that some of the responses from the tech department to me seem inadequate and bordering on the line of callous. I've seen several tech ticket responses that say something to the effect of, we cannot clear the cache for the students, when my colleagues are writing about why Flipgrid won't work, or why Edpuzzle won't work, or why Rocketlit. You know, our school district has invested so much of our care funds into making sure that distance learning is far more engaging, and tries to mimic to the best of its ability the teaching that we would be providing in person. But, you know, it's so disheartening, and it transcends words to hear that we can't have our students use the platforms that we spent all this money on, not only to actually have access for our students, but we spent money on training for our teachers this summer. We pushed back the beginning of our school year in order to afford our teachers the opportunity to be trained in these various tech platforms, and yet our students can't use them. And we're being told that our tech department cannot clear the cache for our students. I would just really hope that there would be a more robust and compassionate response to our genuine concern that our students can't access the technological platforms that we want them to be able to access in order to provide them the best education possible under these horrible circumstances. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have Sheila up next.
Yeah, I just wanted to address, Melissa was asking for more details about attendance, and Kathleen pretty much covered everything I was going to say. One thing I wanted to add is, so it's the asynchronous work that's taking us, the asynchronous attendance that's taking time, because like Kathleen said, we have to open up every single assignment. If the student maybe turned in a blank document or something, we give them a 2. If they did part or all the assignment, we'll give them a 1. So it's kind of, we have to do kind of grading, an assessment to determine what, how to grade their attendance basically. And then in addition, Brian mentioned that if they are absent that day, they didn't do the assignment, we mark them absent. 3 days later, they do the assignment and turn it in, and then we're expected to go back and change their attendance code from absent to a 1. And so we're constantly having, and this is only week 2, we're constantly having to spiral back on the attendance to change it. So it becomes just this, I mean, our heads are spinning at the end of the day, because we just can't keep track of all the back attendance that we're supposed to be changing. So that's primarily why it's taking so long, Melissa.
Thank you, Sheila.
I have Natalie up next.
Okay, I have a question kind of regarding that. I'm a parent. I have a 6th grader at C.A. Jacobs, and I'm new to Aries, so I've been on that checking his attendance. And I know he's been on every subject and turned in his work, but yet in Aries, it shows he has 3 unexcused absences. I don't know if we are supposed to contact the teacher directly, or if we're supposed to go to the attendance or call the office. Where do we go as parents to get that corrected?
Any others?
I have Jill up next.
Good evening. I have a comment sort of piggybacking on what Stephanie Roop said. addressing tech problems and training. I know when we had first met and we're sort of coming up with a plan for our distance learning and what it would look like, we had said, well, I shouldn't say we, the district had said parents would be offered some tech training. And I'm just wondering if any dates have been set for that.
Thank you, Jill.
I have Holly up next.
Hi, good evening. I just wanted to, first of all, give a shout out to all the teachers. My kids have had no problems, connecting with their teachers and getting their work. I know I have a lot of teacher friends who are working extra hard. I want to speak as a parent though. It's hard for the children right now as well as the teachers. I know that my daughter is on the computer from 7:30 until after 3 every day. She works normally through her lunch. I have to make my kids get up and take a walk around the block just because it's not good for them to be sitting there that long, and they're worried about not getting things in at the required time, and they have due dates and due times and things. So I think there's a lot to work on, but the teachers have put in a lot of work and are making a good effort, and we just need to keep rethinking how we're doing things and coming up with new plans to make it work for everyone.
Thanks, Holly.
Thank you, Holly.
I have Tanya up next.
Hey, I'll be real quick. I just, when I commented earlier, I forgot I had just a tidbit of data from my 5 sections that I teach in regards to the Remind app. When I put my syllabus on my Google Classroom, I also included a form for parents to fill out and return to me, acknowledging that they had received and reviewed the syllabus. And on that syllabus was all of my information on how to contact me to enroll in Remind and opt into that. I've had a total of 3 people opt into Remind over my 5 sections. And then as far as the attendance, the one thing I did want to add to what Kathleen and Sheila had shared was that there is, with the asynchronous work and keeping attendance, we can't even begin to do that until after the school day is over. So we have no choice, but I mean, even if we were to manage our time absolutely, impeccably and not have anything else going on, we really can't even get to it until after our contracted hours, which, that's neither here nor there at this point because we're going so far over contracted hours. But it is just something to give a clearer picture of what attendance is like. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have John up next.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. I understood when we talked about how long we were going to be doing this, that the topic of how long the distance learning would last would be something that the board would address on whether it be every other meeting or once a month or whatever. So it's certainly my impression that there's been no determination as to exactly how long we're going to do this. And I know everyone kind of has their own opinions, and no one knows for certain, but I would just ask some of the teachers, I can tell you on some of the first day of school, my youngest son was told, or at least it was suggested to him, that this was going to go until the spring of next year. And I don't know, if there's a true belief in that or what, but I can just tell you, that really threw my youngest son for quite a loop, and I know as we as adults can look at things in certain time frames, it's all about frame of reference, right? I mean, for a young child who's already been doing this since March to be told that, yeah, it's going to be another 6 months or so. I mean, that's a significant chunk of their short lives to this point. So, I mean, I can just tell you, to have a talk with him that night and try to, kind of bring him back and let him know that, look, life has not, this isn't permanent. Life is not, I know it's changed for us all. I realize that, but, I try to tell him that, we're going to get back to normal someday and at least continue to give him hope, and I know we will someday, but to tell him that, from the first day of school was somewhat devastating. So, I would just ask that, maybe we just try to instill hope, and, obviously we don't know, but we'll keep addressing it every month, or whatever the case may be. So thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, John.
Don't see any
Anyone
more
else?
public comment.
Okay,
Oh, there's Heidi.
okay. Go ahead, Heidi.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi. I just wanted to make a comment about the attendance. I know that I've been getting like lots of emails from parents concerned that their child is marked absent. I just want to let parents out there know that if their child has been there, most likely it just hasn't been updated yet. Like we said, it's a positive attendance model and we have 7 days to do that. And so we're backtracked. And so I only take attendance, like I have like a system now of like every 2 days so that I can make sure that I can get my asynchronous work also with that, because we kind of have to base it on work, unfortunately, which I don't think is really fair, because sometimes kids don't understand how to do an assignment, but then we're going to mark them absent even though they were there. So I'm having kind of a hard time with that concept as well. So I hope that we can find something better for attendance, but I just want parents to know that their kids are not marked absent unless you get a call from the school. Like we're calling parents if your kid is absent. So unless you get a call from the school, I wouldn't base too much on what Aries says in the last few days, only because teachers just, we have those 7 days to do that. So I just wanted to make that comment.
Thank you, Heidi. Good information. Okay, anyone else?
Seeing none.
Okay, so let's close public comment again on this issue. There were two things that I saw maybe. One was, what should parents do if they're concerned about their kid being marked absent? And Heidi just gave us some good information there. The other one was about the parent tech training and what's being planned for that.
So let me tackle those, and I'll also, I'd like to briefly touch on John's point about how long for distance learning, just a little bit. So I will include in tomorrow's weekly update going out to parents some information related to waiting on attendance questions, since attendance is now tied to actually completing work. I'll try to explain that as briefly as I can, and then I think we'll ask for school sites to follow up with that with some of their communications as well. Just this is a different model, and one of the differences really is until the asynchronous work has been looked at, graded, dealt with, whatever you want to say, attendance may not be posted even. So I think I'm understanding this, that sometimes that might be because the student submitted it late. Sometimes it might be because the teacher hasn't done it for the whole class yet, because they haven't been able to go through, at that time and taking a look at all those assignments. So we will probably say something like, if it's more than a week since that has been marked, then to check, right? And that it really is tied into the asynchronous element of it. So I'll include that in tomorrow's news. With parent tech training, we had a good meeting with our principals, secondary principals yesterday, elementary principals today, pulling some of those details together. Don't have dates yet, but have identified some of the key elements that we want to do there. We're also going to do some parent surveying to assess their needs more directly. And some of those, I think we could say we knew about at the start of the year for sure. And some of them are new. I think they're emerging here as time goes on. So we intend to be able to start to begin those trainings. I think it's probably not realistic. It's probably realistic to say next week is the planning time. Principals do need to talk with their grade level reps at least to get a sense of what they're seeing as needs. So stay tuned. There are some elements of parent training out there, but very limited so far. And John's question around how long for distance learning. And we said we would revisit timing here as we went through our board meetings. So I will make sure that our next meeting, I do provide some sense of time. We did have a shift in the state reporting model last week, and so we now have this 4-color tiered system instead of the watch list. Solano County remains in purple at this time, which is the poorest performance of the 4 levels. If we shift into red, when we shift into red, then you can begin a dialogue about reopening, and there's a period of time that you have to remain in red before you can do that. And I think I'll just point out also that you could have the opportunity to reopen, and it'll still remain up to each individual school district as to how they're going to respond to those opportunities. The other piece I'll just speak on briefly is that there is a waiver process available to be able to bring back students into the elementary school setting and in small groups for things such as special education, intervention, ELD. And we're going to be looking at that waiver process next week. Right now, the waivers cannot be granted because we're in purple, although you can work them and submit them. So we're gonna address that too. And the final point, again, it ties to John's comments. We have to continue to say out loud, we want to be back in an in-person model, really going to be hybrid. You know, I think is the reality of it. But we want to be back in an in-person model as soon as we possibly can. That's based on the health and safety concerns. It's also based on more dialogue with our employees, with our parents, with our students as appropriate about how to do that. You know, to a very large degree, the schedules that we currently have will work for hybrid. We may have to make some adjustments in them, and that's part of the conversation that we would have as we would look at a transition. But kids should, our message to our student, well, to everyone, should be that we know education works best when it's an in-person interactive process. We want to return to that model as soon as we can. And so if we continue doing the right things, this should be part of our message out there as well, that people are following practices and protocols, that you're not attending a large Labor Day barbecue where people are recklessly interacting, those types of things, that there's a collective responsibility here. We each have our individual responsibilities, obviously, but we also have this collective responsibility to follow the rules to get us back open. So I don't want any student to feel discouraged, like I'm doing this for the rest of my whole school year. That's not what we want. I think voicing that we're going to do our best to get back as soon as possible, and then when that becomes an option for us, we're going to have a whole new set of responsibilities when we get into that setting of having people come back physically. So that said, I think Luke, we probably finished this item. I want to acknowledge the board here right now to provide the opportunity to reopen that and give people the opportunity to speak. Not only, we did have the moment, and not this is in no way accusing anybody of avoiding comment. We did have the moment where there are no hands up, and we closed off public comment and moved on to answering the questions, and then hands came up after that, and could have said no. We had people who were two-time speakers, which is not one of our normal practices, and people responding to questions or comments, which we're trying not to do in the interest of time and running an efficient meeting. So I think most places that had that kind of issue tonight would have said sorry, we closed the agenda item and moved on. So I just want to acknowledge the board here for, again, taking the time to allow full input. It's commendable and not happening everywhere. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to item 11A3, resolution 20-1636.
Yes, a quick item should be anytime that we identify materials of any kind, it can be equipment, it can be instruction materials that are obsolete or inoperable, those types of things. We need to bring a resolution to you for your approval, declaring the items obsolete. At that point in time, they can be destroyed, recycled, given away, sold, any of those types of things. And what you have before you tonight, it's a very long list of outdated materials from the Dixon High School Library that have been able to be weeded out, is what that process is called. So asking for your approval on the resolution tonight to declare those items obsolete.
Okay, board questions? So what is the plan with respect to, are these going to be donated to Friends of the Library, or what are we going to do with them?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Actually, the dynamic around making donations and things of that, people accepting donations is a little bit complicated right now. But that is our typical practice, is to try to find a good place for them to go. When you are dealing with a 1969 book on the Soviet Union, that's probably a better place than the recycle bin or destroyed. Recyclers don't really like books right now because of the adhesives and the binding, but some things just need to go, and some things, yes, we do attempt to get to an appropriate place. Charities, libraries, etc.
There were a lot of them that were like books about people who were once celebrities who would not be considered the celebrities right now. So
yeah.
Okay. Any public questions or comments on this item?
Seeing none.
Okay. This is a resolution. Do we have a motion for approval of the resolution 20-1636?
Move to approve.
Do we have a second?
A second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Resolution, Lloyd?
Aye.
Yule?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Catlin?
Aye.
And I'm aye as well. Resolution passes. Thank you. Okay, item 11B1, Solano County Office of Education adopted budget letter.
I can make sure that you can hear me okay. I had some issues with my audio today.
A little bit louder if there's
Yeah, it's a little quiet.
Okay, let me try. Is this any better?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. I have 3 items this evening. My first item is the Solano County Office of Education adopted budget letter. This is a letter that the Solano County Office of Education presents to provide information about our budget and whether they approve it or disapprove it. A little background: on June 18th, we presented the 2020 adopted budget, and it included at that time the governor's May budget revision projections and what we projected would be the result of the COVID-19 pandemic based upon the information that we had at that time. Thankfully, SCO approved our budget, but they still remain concerned about our overall fiscal health. And tonight I'd like to share some key details from the letter that they issued on our adopted budget. So when they approved our budget, they did so with several considerations. The first is that they anticipate, and it will be indeed a fact, that our first interim budget will look substantially different from our adopted budget. That's due to the Budget Act being very different from the governor's May revise, And then also the board's resolution that was passed in June that committed the district to ongoing reductions to be able to stabilize our budget. And we're calling that our budget stabilization plan. The approval also comes with some conditions that we need to be sure to meet by our first interim budget report in December. The first is at that time, we need to be sure to list any potential reductions and solutions to stabilize our budget and to address our budget shortfalls. We also need to share a plan that addresses our cash flow concerns that we'll have due to the deferrals that I've spoken about at our last few meetings. If we don't do this and are unable to show that we're able to stabilize our budget, then the county may take action. And when I say take action, that means that they may step in and assign a fiscal expert to oversee the fiscal aspects of our district. And that's just simply not a situation that we want to be in. A good part about the letter is that in the letter, they did share that they believe that we are committed and that we are able to make the required changes in order to stabilize our budget. They also had 8 concerns that they highlighted in this letter, and I'll just briefly go over those. One is the negative fund balance. The second one is cash deferrals. The third is the economic impact of COVID. The fourth is enrollment. The fifth is the health of our cafeteria fund. The sixth is our issue with our CalPERS retirement reporting and the potential liability related to that. The seventh is that the CBO, I have been in my position for less than 2 years, and that's just an overarching concern that the county would have of any district whose CBO has been in place for less than 2 years. And the last is an ongoing concern that they've presented is that in the business office, I lack the capacity that prevents me from having to do basic accounting work instead of focusing on higher level administrative tasks. So overall, I really want to make sure that I do highlight that through the letter. It's very nice to be able to say that the county believes that we can make the changes that need to be made in order to right size our budget. We absolutely have conditions that we have to meet, but this will help us to be able to move forward with our stabilization plan, knowing that the county has that faith in us, as I do as well. What questions do you have?
Thank you, Monique. Board questions? The cafeteria plan, the cafeteria fund reference that showed the rather sizable $252,000 draw from the general fund, we did make changes to correct that. Where do you think we're going to be in the next year with that?
Yes, I think had our adopted budget before the pandemic, I would have thought that we would be in a very good situation. And you'll see in my next item on the agenda that our contribution to the cafeteria fund was lower than projected. But based upon COVID-19, based upon the fact that today we served 150 meals when usually we're serving 1,200 meals, we will need to contribute to our cafeteria fund this year.
And we continue to have a large amount of money have to go to special education from our general fund as well.
That is correct.
All right. Any other board questions?
I do about the cafeteria fund. So why would we be having to contribute more if our meals are down? Is it just because of the federal funding? It would seem to me that it would cost us less if we were providing less meals.
We still need to pay the personnel costs. And so we are not able to decrease our personnel to match how many students we're serving. And so we'll need to contribute to help cover those costs.
Food service is one of the 3 areas that SB 98 specifically protected from layoffs during the school year. the others being maintenance and operations and transportation. And while we don't have transportation, we obviously have the other two. So we are not able to reduce staff. So, and we talked about this in our cabinet meeting on Monday, that the loss of revenue and the reimbursable meals in particular, with compared to expenditures on food items, we come out on the bad end of that, transaction, for lack of a better term. So, and the primary issue there are the labor costs. We can explore, and we will, the potential of using COVID funding to offset some of that impact on food service, as we will with every other area that is appropriate to consider that. But that is a piece of the puzzle that we will be looking at here in the next couple of weeks that might be able to help offset some of this concern with cafeteria.
How is that change in funding to allow continued free meals going to impact us?
I'm sorry, can you ask that question again?
Yeah, the fact that we're able to continue giving out the free meals, how is that going to impact this?
We hope that that will increase participation in the number of students and children who eat with us. Now that we can, and I'll just put a plug out there, if you were not aware, we received, actually the country received a waiver for school districts to be able to continue providing and offering free meals to all children 18 years and under. So you may be a child who's not even enrolled in our district, and you can come and eat a meal from us for free. So we anticipate that that will increase our overall participation, the overall number of meals that we serve, but we're not going to get to the 1,200 meals a day that we were at before. And so we'll be able to feed more kids, we'll be able to get more revenue, but it's not going to be sufficient to prevent a contribution to the cafeteria fund.
Okay, any other board questions? Okay, let's go out to public questions and comments.
Seeing none.
Okay, seeing none, this is just an information item, so let's move on to item 11B2.
Mark, may I share my screen, please?
Should be good now.
Thank you. And I'll just do a check-in. Do you all see just a slide that says 2019-20 unaudited actuals?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. So my next item is the 2019-20 unaudited actuals. This is basically where we ended up at the end of last fiscal year. I absolutely want to take a moment to thank the people who helped the development of this and the closing of our books. Laura Anderson, Jose Chang, Rose, Lisa, Barbara in the business office, and our consultants, Park Corp, could not have been able to get this done and meet our deadlines without their assistance.
Pantry space, the kitchen's not big enough to cook everything.
So with every presentation, I share the annual budget cycle. We are currently at the unaudited actual section of our budget cycle. This evening, I'll review with you the legal requirements for unaudited actuals. I'll also take some time to just review
how nice my parents were today.
And then of course present the unaudited actuals and talk about our next steps.
During my wonderful graphing lesson.
So the legal requirements, the unaudited actuals reflect the district's financial position as of June 30th, 2020. They're reviewed by the Solano County Office of Education, and they're verified by our external auditors through their audit report. So the reason it's called the unaudited actuals is because they just haven't been audited. They are actual expenditures for the end of the year, but they're not official until our auditors audit. Whoever is
Someone has their mic open. Yeah, if we could just check and make sure you're muted. Thank you.
Thank you. I really want to take a moment to look at last year. It was an extremely unique year. We began the year in August and September with an unanticipated enrollment decline of over 100 students. Then in December, we self-certified our budget as qualified, and it was ultimately changed to negative by the Solano County Office of Education. In December through February, staff and our budget advisory committees had meetings to identify over $900,000 in reductions. In March, we were excited to be able to present our second interim budget and certify that as qualified, which the Solano County Office of Education agreed with our certification. Yet a little over a week later, we closed due to the pandemic. It was a very unique year. So as I present the unaudited actuals and we see how things changed so dramatically over the year, please remember that we encountered so many different anomalies last year that really go into what we're going to see this evening. So I'll start with our revenue. Our LCFF revenue, local control funding revenue, which is the majority of the revenue that we receive for our district and can be used for general expenditures, we ended up being about $30.6 million. It's a little bit up from our estimated actuals. Our estimated actuals are our projections of our actual expenditures that are presented during the adopted budget for the 2020 school year, meaning those estimated actuals is where we thought we would land when I presented to you back in June. Okay. Our federal revenue was down significantly from what we estimated in June to 1.6 million. The reason for this decline in revenue is mainly due to us awaiting our revenue for our title funds and our career technical education, one of our grants. So overall, we ended the year with our revenue being a bit down from what we had originally estimated in June. Take a peek at our expenses. Our salaries and benefits, they were up a little bit, mainly due to some stipends that were provided towards the end of the year. It's just a couple $100,000. However, our operating costs were significantly lower. This is mainly due to our school closure. We just were not able to spend as we had planned to spend and as we normally spend towards the end of the year because we were not in session and we were not making those expenditures, especially not knowing if we would be in having classes in person, on school site, using materials in a traditional way, or if we would be in distance learning. So overall, our total expenditures were down from what we had anticipated and projected in June. Therefore, our surplus is up when compared to last June. And our net ending balance is also up. I do want to take a moment to note right here where we have the transfer out. That is our ultimate contribution to our cafeteria fund. At our estimated actuals, we were anticipating that we would have about a $252,000 contribution to our cafeteria fund. Towards the end of the year, we identified that that was about $118,000. As I mentioned in my last item, that is going to be very different this year because we're not able to get the revenue that we would project for our cafeteria fund. And as Brian also mentioned, we're looking at if and how we can use our one-time funding, our COVID funds, to be able to support our cafeteria fund and the great work that that team is doing. So where does that leave us with our ending fund balance? It's up. And this is so important. I like to call our ending balance our savings account, because that's where we need to put money in for these unexpected times like we're in right now to be able to weather these storms. And so our ending fund balance percent is up from 7.19 to 9.3. That's really great. Again, I want to emphasize that's putting money into our savings account so that we can be prepared for what's coming next. Next, I want to take a moment to talk about how we ended last year and what it may look like going forward and the effects on future budget. So the unaudited actuals, it increases the projection for our 2020 ending fund balance percent. But we still must make sure that we're making adjustments to stabilize our budget. So I want to now go to last month. In August, I presented the 45-day revise. The 45-day revise was a revision to our adopted budget based upon the enacted state budget in July. And as I mentioned in our last bit of conversation, it was very different from what the adopted budget was. And at that time, for this year, we were projecting that our ending fund balance would be 4%. We need a minimum of 3%, and the out years were negative. This year, based upon the unaudited actuals, we are projecting that the 2020-21 ending fund balance will be about 5.5%. Still negative for the out years though, okay? So next steps. We are developing a budget stabilization plan with staff and the Budget Advisory Committee. That work begins this month and will go through November. In October, our external auditors will be here to work with us and review our books and make sure that the numbers that we're presenting to you this evening are accurate. And then we will present the first interim budget report and the budget stabilization plan in December. So I'll end with a look at our budget cycle. So our first interim financial report, as I mentioned in the last slide, I will present in December. This year, I'll also be presenting a budget stabilization plan. So I'm available to answer questions at this time.
Thank you. Board questions? Thank you for that really great presentation. So what is the anticipated drop from the 5% to negative in the out years? What are the main causes of that issue?
Mm-hmm. Some of the main projections that go into that is we will lose our one-time funding. So that is, over, we're looking at from this year to next year about a $4 million drop. And, we'll need to make sure that our expenditures align with that. Looking forward, we are projecting a 0% COLA. And just a reminder to conversations I've had in the past, this year we had a hold harmless clause. And what that meant is even if we had a decline in our enrollment, our funding level would stay fairly steady with what it was last year. Next year, it won't. And so with the decline in enrollment, we anticipate a pretty significant decline in our LCFF funding.
Okay, thank you. Any other board questions? Go to public comments. Okay, seeing none, let's go out to public comment.
Seeing no public comment.
Okay, so we'll close public comment.
30 seconds.
This is an action item.
Yeah, 30 seconds for me, Luke, before you take action, if I may. We really have our work cut out for us in terms of planning and implementing our budget plan. It's going to be, we really are designing a very robust analysis of where we are and developing that plan for your adoption with the first interim time. Budget advisory, we'll have that up and running before the end of the month. We've informed our principals of all the work that they're going to be engaged in as part of this as well. We did a very thorough line-by-line look at our budget last, it was last school year. It was right after the first interim time. The most thorough review of our budget and extensive adjustments that I had seen in my time here. We have to up that game even more. So just want to make sure people understand that, yes, the forecast is very bleak in terms of revenue coming in, and we're going to have to be able to really aggressively respond to that. So.
Okay, thank you, Brian. This is an action item. Do we have a motion to approve the 2019-2020 unaudited actuals report?
I'll move.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second. Oh, lots of seconds.
Melissa,
we have a motion. We have a motion and a second. Would anyone like to comment before we vote? Okay, go ahead.
Luke, my comment is what I've said before. You know, the January budget proposed by the governor is going to be critical to our success, as well as all school districts in California. And, you know, this is looking like 2007-8 when we went through the Great Depression and education lost $18 billion that year. And with only, you know, we're generating half the amount of revenue in the state, you can see that everybody's going to be in trouble. It's not just Dixon, it's everyone's going to be in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to be proactive instead of reactive. And that's why I'm glad to see that we've got an advisory committee that's going to start up to help us make some of these tough decisions that I hope don't happen, but I'm fearful will happen. Because of the way the state's being run right now.
Thank you, Lloyd. Anyone else? Yeah, well said, Lloyd. Hard times ahead, for sure. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Lloyd?
Aye.
Jewel?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Catlin?
Aye.
I'm aye as well. Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, on to item 11B3, 2019-20 GAN limit appropriations resolution.
Okay, this is my last item this evening. So the GAN limit is an annual requirement of the governing board to approve and establishes the district's estimated appropriation limit. In essence, it limits the amount of tax money that state and local governments, including school districts, can legally spend. It's an annual resolution. I do want to make one note that as I was reviewing the resolution this evening, there is one section in there where it says 2018-19, and that should be 19-20. And so if this resolution passes, we will need to make sure that we update that particular section. But I ask that you do approve this resolution.
Okay, any board questions? Hearing none, any public questions?
Seeing none.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve resolution 2019-20 GAN limit appropriations resolution subject to the correction noted by Monique?
So move. You beat me, Melissa.
There's Catlin.
Okay, Catlin's made the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have the motion and the second. Roll call vote. Lloyd?
Aye.
Rule?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Catlin?
Aye.
And I'm aye as well. Thank you. Motion passes, resolution passes. Okay, so we're on to item 11C1, Memorandum of Understanding.
Yes, thank you, Board President Foster. Good evening, board members and Superintendent Dolan. Since May 18th, there had been many board meetings and discussions leading up to the board approval on July 16th with the district reopening schools with 100% distance learning 2.0 for 2020-21 school year. We knew that whatever the decision was, schools would look, feel, and be different than a traditional school year. The district and the DTA's bargaining team met in good faith to negotiate the working conditions of all certificated employees as governed by the EERA to ensure the work is aligned with Senate Bill 98 and district policies. This process is not always easy given the challenges that we are all facing, regardless of the position that we hold. However, we did have a common goal, and that was how best to support the needs of our students as an educational institution during these trying times. I would also like to acknowledge Brian's contribution to the process. Not a lot of district superintendents have or can make the time to participate and sit through all the days and hours of negotiation sessions that took place to address the wide variety of issues that both parties were facing. Brian's participation in this process as a true leader during these times really enforces that our students' education and supporting our employees is at the forefront. I also like to thank Nick for all of his expertise on the ed services side of the house with his team. And last but not least, I would also like to thank DTA's bargaining team as well for all of their hard work and all of the time and commitment they put through the process. What I've learned from years of negotiating is that we have many constituents, stakeholders, and community members that we incorporate into our discussions and our planning. However, with the many variations of the need and requests, there is not going to be one answer, solution, or decision that can fit or satisfy all. What we do hope is that this MOU shows the hard work that both parties were able to compromise on to find a path forward that outlines the expectations and parameters of what distance learning 2.0 will bring this year, while we are still in the distance learning model. And I'd like to also hand it over to Brian to add his take on the process and anything else.
Thanks, Cindy. And you're kind to me there. We were doing our job, right? All of us, myself as a part of that. And usually I don't negotiate, but with all of the unprecedented times and twists and turns in how we're trying to function right now, it was the right thing to do. And as we're working on the MOU with SEIU, which just to answer that question, if anybody has it, where is the MOU with SEIU? We're currently working on that with them, negotiating every Wednesday at this point in time, addressing any issues there with regards to their working conditions. So I think we have to say out loud, this was difficult. You know, this was a long, challenging process. And over the space of 3.5 weeks, we met on many days and we conversed for many hours. And in the end, what I want to point out is that nobody got everything they wanted. Everybody got some things that they wanted. And we created structures and processes and elements of this agreement that the governing board has agreed to through our process and formally tonight, and that just under 76% of the members of the Dixon Teachers Association who voted also approved. So we could get lost in all of the noise and challenges and angst and anger and all the other elements, so much of which, well, almost all of which actually happened in these meetings and out somewhat publicly, and didn't happen at all at the negotiations table. And we can't get lost in that. We have to focus on the fact that we came to an agreement, that we've implemented that agreement, that the agreement is a benefit to our students right now. We had professional development days, which our teachers jumped into wholeheartedly. They're implementing so much of what they learned. We have schedules in place which are challenging for everybody, students, teachers, parents alike. But we have accountability in schedules. We have something that was really important to us about having our teachers work from their classrooms here. We also have flexibility, both short-term and long-term, around the options for people to work remotely. We have safety considerations in there. We have commitments of all different types to work together around curriculum and everything else. We also committed to go back to the table as the need arises and make adjustments. So it would be really easy for people who've had strong feelings about this just to focus on the difficulty and that they didn't get what they want entirely. But our responsibility right now is to say, we did reach this agreement and all of us have the duty to follow it, to fulfill our roles. And speaking of roles, Scott Nelson and Kathy Michaels, the co-presidents of DTA, Andrea Ferguson, Sean McGreevy, Sandra Lieb. Did I leave somebody out of that group? I don't think I did, but Cindy or Nick, correct me if I'm wrong. The members
Matt Benuelos.
Matt Benuelos, sorry, yes. Sorry, Mr. B, if you're watching. The members of the DTA negotiations team represented their members so admirably, and were, the honest, constructive work that we were able to do got us here. So we appreciate their efforts and their support, frankly, with some difficulty, but their support with their members in getting this approved. So this is a vehicle for us to operate now and to move forward. And that's how we have to view it and not get stuck on any of the challenges here. We're doing a good job out there right now. This is part of it. And I thank everybody, including the board, for your extensive involvement in this as well. So we would ask for you to bless it tonight and be able to call this chapter of this process closed.
Okay, any board questions or comments? See none. Any public questions or comments on this item?
I'm seeing none.
Okay, seeing none, do we have a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding on reopening of schools with the Dixon Unified School District, DUSD, and Dixon Teachers Association, DTA?
I'll move.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Would anyone like to comment before we vote? Okay, hearing none, I've just got a quick comment, and that is not to beat a dead horse on what's already been said. I've been a practicing litigation attorney for 27 years, and as doing that job, a lot of it is negotiation. I was involved in a mediation today, and I also have volunteered with the courts as a judge pro tem and a mediator and arbitrator, and been paid for that as well. And one of the things I tend to tell clients and parties when they come into a negotiation is exactly what Brian said about usually when a negotiation is successful, it means that everyone walks away from the table a little unhappy because no one gets what they want. And that's the nature of compromise. And I know in this particular case, there were very strong feelings on both sides about what's best for students. And there were concerns about safety, and there were a lot of legitimate concerns. And I just want to say that I greatly appreciate the hard work done by the district negotiators, the DTA negotiation team, and ultimately the DTA members for approving this MOU. And as Brian said, no one got everything they wanted, but a lot of hard work was done to get us to where we are. So that having been said, we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Lloyd?
Aye.
Jewel?
Aye.
Melissa?
Aye.
Catlin?
Aye.
And I'm aye as well. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay, we're on to item 11D1. Learning continuity and attendance plan. Public hearing. I will open the public hearing.
All right, good evening, everybody. I'm Nick Germani, the Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services. So tonight is a public hearing for the Learning Continuity and Attendance Plan. I'm going to go ahead and request permission to share my screen, Mark. Okay. Should all be seeing it now? Yes. Yes.
No.
Okay, let me try again.
We are not seeing it.
And now.
There we go.
Great, thank you. So some of you will recognize that if you put learning continuity attendance plan together, it forms the acronym LCAP, which typically stands for something very, very different. And the LCAP is really a planning process that happens the spring prior to the beginning of a school year. This school year has started. So this is a little different than most plans that we would present. And in some ways, it really captures sort of a snapshot of the planning and efforts that we've already made. Nonetheless, there's plenty of space for input as we move through this. So just a quick overview of the process. Pretty basic, that we gather stakeholder input. We write a draft plan, which is what you have available tonight. There's a public hearing, which again is tonight. And then there's a board approval that's prior to September 30th. The plan right now is to bring this for approval at the next board meeting in 2 weeks. So what I'm going to do tonight is just give a broad overview of each of the sections and take any board or public comments as it pertains to those at the end of the presentation. So the purpose of the plan first is to really memorialize the planning which occurred and is ongoing for this school year. And the statute says it's going to describe how the LEA will do all of the following things: address gaps in learning, especially for our most vulnerable groups, how we're going to conduct distance learning, how we're going to transition to in-person learning when it's appropriate to do that, also how we're going to conduct stakeholder engagement, provide access to devices and connectivity, support the social and emotional health of our students, continue to provide school meals for our students, and then basically how we're going to budget to meet all these tasks. So first up is the stakeholder engagement section. How do we engage our stakeholders? And I really wanted to start with our board meetings, and this was alluded to earlier in the meeting. You know, we added 6 additional meetings with ample public comment from stakeholders over the summer. What we did was atypical, and the way we've engaged as a community at times very intensely is unique. And I really want to thank the board for taking the time to do that. We had several meetings last over 5 hours, and we had hundreds of participants. That is not the case everywhere. I really want to emphasize that. How do we engage parents and pupils? We had 3 town hall meetings. We had over 600 participants in those. Obviously, parents were given as much speaking time at board meetings as they wanted. We had a DLAC meeting this week to review with them. But I also want to say that DLAC last year was going through a lot of the actions and services as well. And then finally, we did surveys in the spring to end early summer to see where our parents were. Our certificated staff are our teachers. You know, obviously a lot of participation in board meetings from those folks. Want to thank them for that. We did surveys of those staff as well. Prior to negotiations, we were doing meetings with DTA leadership. They were scheduled weekly as the spring went on. Those waned a little bit in June as schedules didn't permit, but we had meetings with their e-board with some frequency. And then finally, those 3 weeks of negotiations that we just talked about in the item previous really had a lot of input on the plan as it's written. For our classified staff, there's the ongoing meet and confer process that Cindy and Mark and Monique are a part of, and then also ongoing negotiations with that group. So what the plan then does is memorializes sort of the overarching themes from these stakeholder groups, and so I tried to condense those into some bullets here. First off was this instructional schedule that specified time for teachers and students to synchronously work together. High quality instructional practices supporting that professional development, student access to technology, social, emotional, and mental health supports that those would continue for our students, and then access to instructional technology platforms to augment distance learning, and then finally support for families to effectively partner in distance learning. These were sort of the overarching themes. Were these everything that we heard? Absolutely not. But for the sake of getting kind of the main things out, this is what we were hearing. So then weirdly, the plan calls us to talk about in-person instructional offerings first. This doesn't, from a reality standpoint, it doesn't make sense to start with in-person instructional offerings because it's not what we're doing, but because that's what the plan makes us write about first, that's what I'm going to start with right now. And really it's I don't want to say it's the briefest part of the plan, but it's probably the least filled out at this point because there's so much to do as we transition to this eventually. So the first stuff is we did put instructional schedules in place which lend themselves to transitioning to hybrid learning, we think with some facility. I think there's certainly some discussion to go around that as we get closer. What the plan also does is prioritize some student groups to come back first. I want to say that this is a draft at this point, and really this needs to be a board and public discussion. If we're not able to bring back all kids first, who do we bring back first? What the plan has in there in draft form right now, to me, is sort of what we would think right now would be best practice and what we're hearing across the state. Start thinking about our primary age students, our youngest students struggling the most with technology and needing the most oversight at home. Really makes some sense to think about them first. Our English learners, our special education students, et cetera. But as Brian talked about, the waiver that we need to begin writing next week, we'll really consider this and we'll obviously be brought back for public and board comment as we get into that process. And then finally, this is where our safety work has been really critical. Any chance we have of bringing kids back is really absolutely 100% contingent on our ability to do that safely. So Mark and his team and all the planning that's gone along there will be key to making that happen. So then this section moves on to our distance learning program. And this obviously is the place where we have the most detail because we're obviously living this right now. So first off, it asks us to talk about our continuity of instruction. And in this section, we describe the instructional schedules, the curriculum that we're using, our instructional supports, and then whatever assessments that we're going to use to assess our kids. It makes us discuss access to devices and connectivity, how we're providing hardware, and how we're providing internet access support. So the plan touches on those things. And obviously, this is an area where we've heard comments tonight. We'll continue working on this as a district. It has us talk about how we're going to do pupil participation and progress. Again, we've heard some concerns around that tonight. I will tell you, this is something that I was in a meeting earlier this week with assistant soups across the county. And this is something we're all chewing on and trying to figure out, working with our auditors and business offices to make sure that we're accounting for this correctly. And this is just a process that is getting ironed out as we go along, which is not very satisfactory to those people living it right now. But when you have processes put in place by officials outside of our organization that are not classroom teachers, this is sometimes what happens. That they're onerous and time consuming and not allowing our folks to focus on the things that we want them to. So we're trying to really find that balance between the work that teachers have to do, but then our obligation, frankly, to meet the auditing requirements that are put in front of us. It also asks us to talk about the interventions that we have in place for students that are not attending, or what are called re-engagement plans for kids. Finally, professional development. So the plan touches on our work around AVID, the local offerings that we've done, which a real shout out to our teams here who've been doing so much great work with each other and with teachers. We've talked about that at other meetings, so I won't go into too much detail. It mentions our 3 additional PD days that we added, which were critical to having a successful start to the year. And then also talks about our ongoing efforts. Those are the Mondays that are built into our instructional schedules to be able to give people even more time to continue to professionally develop as the year goes on. It asks us to talk about staff roles and responsibilities. And the reality is, and the certificated job descriptions, even though the job looks a lot different for our teachers right now, I'm not trying to say it doesn't, but the core functions of the tasks of the jobs have not changed. They're still teaching kids every day. So the work here really is around SEIU negotiations. And since that's ongoing, not much there has been filled out in this section yet. I hope that it may be by the time we come back for a final approval of this, but that really is primarily our work with our SEIU partners. And finally, supports for pupils with unique needs. So the plan asks us to call out, how we're going to support our English learners. It doesn't say migrant students, but we put migrant students in. We talk about our struggling readers and that we're continuing with our RTI programs at elementary especially, and our homeless and foster youth. So then we talk about the associated actions to execute distance learning. So this plan does not get into the detail of the other LCAP with every single SCG purpose. The statute says is we really need to talk about what are the things that you're doing to make sure that distance learning happens this year. And so these are the things that we've memorialized in that budget. Many of these things are being funded by CARES, those COVID dollars, as we talked about, but some of them are also coming from our traditional pots of SCG dollars that are traditional LCAP dollars. So you can see the list there. We've been able to pivot a lot of our professional development monies, which have traditionally been coming out of Title II or SCG dollars. We're putting through the CARES budget because it makes sense to absolutely do them. We can link that to distance learning and the learning loss mitigation funds. But you can see some of these things on here are things that we've had for many years, like mental health clinicians. We're not pulling those from COVID. That feels disingenuous. From the purpose of those dollars is what are you doing that's different? Our mental health clinicians certainly are working in a different milieu, but they're doing the same task. So we're going to keep those in the SCG dollars as we move forward. Moving along to our pupil learning loss, this is another section. It basically asks this key question: what are you going to do to address the learning loss or the COVID slide that happened in 1920 and will continue this year? Hopefully not as much, but we know that there'll be some loss. So the first step really is assessing the challenge. It talks about how we are assessing and will need to assess kids moving forward, and then the ways in which we're addressing that challenge. So we really feel like our work around AVID is a key way to doing that. We also are continuing with our RTI intervention programs at elementary with a potential expansion of that as needed as we look into 2021-22, or even this year if it makes sense for us to think about doing it there. Talks about what we're doing with designated ELD, as well as this integrated ELD piece that we're starting to train some of our secondary folks on that we're really excited about. Talks about after hours tutoring, which we do not have up and running right now, but working with principals and sites to get that going here in the next couple weeks. That was something that we heard loud and clear from parents as well as students and some staff as well, that having some tutoring available for kids that's outside of the traditional hours, especially for our working families who are not able to work with their kids, will be during the day will be really critical for us. And then of course, when I mentioned our math coaching support, which we've scaled up to do our middle school this year as well. Shout out to Mr. Emil and all his great work as well. And then of course, I should mention also with the ELD, this is Trevor Foster, our ELD coach, really doing some amazing things there to support that program. So the associated costs for this, you can see our math and ELD coaches. This is where it made sense for us to tuck the AVID expense. Our assessment programs, which are always in our regular LCAP, are there. And then a potential additional RTI intervention, FTE as needed as we move forward. The plan also touches on how we're supporting our mental health and social emotional well-being. Adrian did this section and really focuses on three key areas, how we're training our staff to address this, our PBIS work and how that looks a little bit different in the distance learning 2.0 era, and then describes the support that we're offering to our students, mental health clinicians, et cetera, as we move forward. School nutrition, this is a fairly short section. We are continuing to serve our students, but the plan makes us say that, and so we are going to say that. Every school site is doing this for our kids. And that is again, the 30,000-foot view of the plan. And what I'll say is this, we'll take comments and questions now. We're gonna note the questions as we move forward because we do need to address those formally at the next meeting when prior to approval. But I would encourage anybody out there listening who I know I talk fast and I went through that kind of that broad view. The plan is attached to the agenda item for anyone who wants to review it, but it's also now on our website. So if you read it over the long weekend, well, I'll be cooped up, so maybe you will read it over the long weekend, and you have questions or comments that you want to make, please email those to me at ngiramonte@dixonusd.org, and we'll be sure to include those in our responses at the next meeting. Okay?
Great, thank you, Nick. Okay, any board questions or comments? Hearing none. Any public questions or comments?
I think my PowerPoint's put people to sleep. Sorry.
Any public questions or comments? Please raise your hand at this time.
Can you stop sharing your screen? I can't see any raised hands, Nick. Sorry.
There you go. That's a convenient way to end the meeting a little earlier. Note that one, Mark.
Okay, I see no raised
I have not
hands
seen
in
any
my-
either.
Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and, Brian, you didn't have anything you wanted to add on this item, did you?
Nick covered it all.
You did it well. Okay, so I will close the public hearing on this item. And this is not an action item, so I guess that gets us through that. Thank you, Nick. Appreciate it. And so we will move on to item 12, agenda items for future meetings. Does anyone have any suggested agenda items?
You know, the obvious lame pun is, you know, this board meeting has just gone to the dogs, right? Yeah. Sorry for
Makes
that.
me want to go pet mine.
Right?
Okay, so
Yeah.
any board announcements? Lloyd, anything you'd like to announce?
I have none, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Jewel, any announcements?
I just have a question about the student board member symposium. So I don't know if we have a student board member this year. And if we did, whether that person would be eligible to go to that symposium.
It's a good question, Joel. I haven't thought about that student rep until this very moment. I'll make contact with the Dixon High folks tomorrow and see what the status is on that. We should have one. Just because we're doing it this way doesn't mean we shouldn't. So I will get on that tomorrow.
Great. Melissa, any announcements?
No, I don't have any announcements, but I will say, well, I guess it is kind of an announcement. Luke and I did a walkthrough through the John Knight Middle School, and it is making really great progress. And it's really good to see that there are areas that are almost finished.
Mm-hmm.
So it gave me great hope that we're gonna be able to use it when we can go back to school.
Yep.
Wonderful. Catlin, any announcements?
No announcements.
Okay. Yeah, that was exciting to actually see some of the classrooms looking like almost totally done. And let's hope we get the kids back there before long. Okay, Brian, any closing thoughts?
No, just thank you again. You know, it's been a good start out there. Long way to go, obviously. I think we heard about a lot of different kind of challenges from the normal in the first couple of weeks of school, but we got to stick together, work through them, and we'll be good.
Thank you to all the teachers that are working so hard for kids and all the parents that are working so hard to try to make this work for their kids. And I think we all recognize this is a difficult and unusual time, and we'll keep trying to make things better and better as we go. Okay, coming events, September 17th is the next board meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So move.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Well, meeting adjourned. Thank
Thanks,
you,
everybody.
everyone.